The emergency room doors slam open with enough force to rattle the security glass as Junho bursts through, Minjun's unconscious form cradled against his chest. Her tiny hospital gown, the one with cheerful teddy bears that now mock the gravity of this moment, is soaked with his sweat and tears. "Please," he shouts in fractured English, his usual corporate composure shattered. "My daughter, she collapsed again, just like..." His voice breaks as nurses converge, but it's Dr. Yao. Shanice Howard, who cuts through the chaos with practiced calm. "Room 3 now," she commands, her blue stethoscope already around her neck as she takes charge of the gurney. Her eyes meet Junho's over Minjun's still form, and something passes between them. Recognition of shared desperation, the electric connection of two souls who've both lost too much. "Sir, I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that?" The monitors begin their urgent symphony as Minjun's small body disappears behind the emergency doors. Junho stumbles against the wall, his $1,000 suit wrinkled and rain-soaked, his hands shaking as he watches the only person left in his world fight for her life. Through the window, he sees Shanice's gentle hands working with deadly precision, her voice soft but commanding as she calls for medications he can't pronounce. "She's everything," he whispers to the empty hallway, the words torn from somewhere deep in his chest. "If I lose her too?" But Dr. Martinez emerges from another room, her expression sharp with professional assessment. "Mr. Lee, isn't it? The child with the complex cardiac history?" Her tone carries an undertone Junho can't quite place. Perhaps it's time to consider transferring to a more experienced specialist. The suggestion lands like a physical blow. Through the window, Shanice glances up from the monitors, her dark eyes finding his across the glass. In that moment, Junho faces the choice that will determine everything. Trust the young doctor whose hands seem to hold magic, or let fear drive him toward the familiar safety of reputation and credentials. But some decisions can't wait for logic, and Minjun's next heartbeat might depend on the choice he makes right now. When love means trusting a stranger with everything you have left, would you gamble on the hands that feel right or the reputation that feels safe? If stories like this remind you why hope sometimes wears scrubs and carries stethoscopes, subscribe to hear more tales of the hearts that heal other hearts, because this is just the beginning. The ICU at 3 a.m. operates on different rules than the daylight world. Machines breathe for patients who can't. Monitors paint electronic heartbeats across dark screens. And hope moves through the halls wearing comfortable shoes and carrying coffee that tastes like survival. Shanice checks Minjun's vitals for the 6th time in 2 hours, her fingers gentle against the child's impossibly small wrist. Her rhythm stabilizing, she murmurs to the night nurse, but her eyes never leave the sleeping face on the pillow. Minjun looks even tinier surrounded by the medical machinery, her black hair spread like silk across the white pillowcase. The new medication protocol is working. In the hallway, Junho hasn't moved from his vigil by the window. Secretary Park arrived an hour ago with fresh clothes and concerned efficiency, but the CEO of Lee Industries remains in his wrinkled suit, unwilling to step away even long enough to change. His phone buzzes constantly. Board meetings, media inquiries, the endless demands of a company that can't pause for personal crisis. But he ignores them all. "Sir," Park ventures carefully, offering a steaming cup of coffee from the machine down the hall. "Perhaps you should try to rest. The doctor said it could be hours before." "I'm not leaving her." Junho's voice is hoarse from exhaustion and held back tears. "Not again. I left her mother for just one meeting, one quick presentation to the investors. And when I came back..." He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. Through the glass, Shanice adjusts Minjun's blanket with the automatic care of someone who's performed this gesture thousands of times. But there's something different in how her hands linger, how she hums softly under her breath, a melody Junho recognizes from somewhere deep in memory. "The doctor," he says suddenly. "What do you know about her?" Park consults his ever-present tablet. Dr. Shanice Howard, pediatric cardiologist, graduated top of her class from Johns Hopkins, specializes in congenital heart defects in children. Reputation for unconventional methods but excellent outcomes. Unconventional how? She spends too much time with families, gets emotionally involved. Some colleagues consider it unprofessional. Park glances at his employer's haggard face. Others say it's what makes her extraordinary. At 4 a.m., when the coffee has gone cold and Junho's eyes burn with sleeplessness, Shanice finally emerges from Minjun's room. Her scrubs are wrinkled, her hair escaping from its bun, and there are lines of exhaustion around her dark eyes. But she's smiling. "She's stable," Shanice announces, and the words hit Junho like a reprieve from a death sentence. Her heart responded beautifully to the new treatment. "We'll need to monitor her closely, but I think we caught this episode in time." Junho's knees buckle slightly, and Park steadies him with a concerned hand. "Thank you," he manages in English, then switches to Korean, the emotion too big for his second language. "감사합니다. 정말 감사합니다." Shanice doesn't understand the words, but she understands gratitude in any language. She's a fighter, your daughter, stronger than she looks. She pauses, studying his face. "When was the last time you slept? Or ate something that wasn't from a vending machine?" "I'm fine. You're exhausted, and Minjun is going to need you at full strength for what comes next." Her voice carries the authority of someone accustomed to managing worried families along with sick children. "There's a family lounge on the second floor. Real couches, decent coffee. I'll call you the moment anything changes." For the first time in hours, Junho looks directly at her instead of through the glass at his daughter. Shanice is younger than he'd first realized, maybe late 20s, with intelligent eyes and hands that move with unconscious grace. There's something about her presence that feels steadying, like she's used to carrying other people's worst fears and somehow making them lighter. "Why?" he asks quietly. "Why what? Why are you so kind?" Most doctors would have handed her case to someone with more experience by now. Something flickers across Shanice's expression. Pain, quickly masked. "Because I've been where you are, and because Minjun reminds me of someone I used to know." She glances back toward the room where the child sleeps peacefully, monitors beeping their reassuring rhythm. Sometimes the medicine is just the beginning. The healing part. That takes something more. As dawn creeps through the hospital windows, painting everything in soft gold light, Junho makes a decision that surprises him. He follows Shanice's advice, heading to the family lounge for what he tells himself will be just a few minutes of rest. But as he settles onto the couch that smells like hospital disinfectant and other people's worry, his phone buzzes with a text that changes everything. The board meeting is tomorrow. If you're not there to vote, Taejun wins control of the company. Minjun's medical bills won't matter if you lose everything else. Mother. Outside, Seoul is waking up to another day of 8 million people pursuing their dreams and surviving their nightmares. But in the family lounge of Presbyterian Hospital, one Korean CEO faces a choice between the company his family built and the daughter who means more to him than everyone in his bank account. And somewhere in the building, Dr. Shat. Shanice Howard stares at her reflection in the bathroom mirror and wonders if saving this child might finally heal the wound left by the sister she couldn't save. The morning shift change brings new faces and fresh energy to the pediatric ward, but Shanice feels anything but refreshed. She's been awake for 18 hours straight, surviving on coffee, and the kind of adrenaline that comes from holding someone's heart in your hands. Minjun's vitals remain stable, her breathing steady beneath the oxygen mask. But something about this case has burrowed under Shanice's professional detachment. "Dr. Howard?" Nurse Jennifer approaches with the cautious tone reserved for doctors who've been on duty too long. "Dr. Martinez wants to speak with you about the Korean patient." Shanice doesn't look up from Minjun's chart. "Tell Dr. Martinez that Minjun is my patient, and her condition is stable." She said it was urgent. Something about protocol. The word hangs in the air like a threat. Shanice knows exactly what Elena Martinez means by protocol. The unwritten rules that say young doctors shouldn't get too attached, that certain patients deserve certain doctors, that experience always trumps intuition. She's heard it before, usually when her success rate starts making colleagues uncomfortable. 5 minutes, Shanice tells Jennifer. Then I'm back with Minjun. Dr. Martinez's office overlooks the hospital parking lot, where tired family members pace between cars and cigarette breaks, trying to manage crisis from a distance. Elena herself sits behind her desk like a judge, her dark hair pulled back in a style that suggests control over every aspect of her environment. "Shanice, we need to discuss the Lee case." Minjun Lee. She has a name. The child with the complex cardiac history and the wealthy Korean father. Elena's voice carries the particular sharpness reserved for colleagues she considers threats. "I've reviewed her file. This level of congenital defect requires someone with more experience in international cases. I'm recommending transfer to Dr. Richardson." Shanice keeps her expression neutral, though her hands clench slightly at her sides. Minjun is responding well to treatment. Her father trusts our care. "What's the real problem here, Elena?" "The real problem is that you're emotionally compromised. Again." Elena stands, moving to the window with the calculated grace of someone who's learned that presentation matters as much as competence. "You're spending too much time with this family." The nursing staff is talking. "About what?" "About how you hummed lullabies during the emergency procedure. About how you've personally checked on the child 6 times in 4 hours. About how you're letting a grief-stricken father sleep in our family lounge instead of directing him to appropriate accommodations." Elena turns back toward Shanice, her expression sharp with professional assessment. "This isn't the first time, Shanice. Your emotional involvement with patients is becoming a pattern." The accusation hits deep, touching the wound Shanice has spent 3 years trying to heal. The memory surfaces before she can stop it. Another hospital room, another child's heart monitor, another moment when medicine wasn't enough, and love couldn't bridge the gap between fighting and losing. "My emotional involvement," Shanice says carefully, "is what saved Minjun's life last night. While you were questioning my credentials, I was finding the medication combination that stabilized her rhythm. And what happens when emotional involvement isn't enough? When you're too close to see the clinical reality?" Elena's voice softens slightly, taking on the tone of someone offering unwanted wisdom. "I know about your sister, Shanice. I know why you chose pediatric cardiology." The words land like physical blows. Shanice hasn't spoken about Keisha to anyone at the hospital. Not the sister who died at 8 years old from a heart defect that went undiagnosed until it was too late. Not the promise she made at a graveside to save every child she could reach. Not the guilt that drives her to work 18-hour shifts and take cases other doctors consider too risky. "My sister," Shanice says quietly, "taught me that every heartbeat matters. That every child deserves someone who will fight for them like their family." "And what did she teach you about professional boundaries?" Before Shanice can answer, her pager buzzes with the urgent tone that makes every medical professional's heart skip. Room 307, Minjun's room. She's already moving toward the door when Elena's voice follows her. "This conversation isn't over, Dr. Howard." But Shanice is already running. In room 307, chaos has the controlled urgency of medical emergency. Minjun's monitors are shrieking alerts, her small body convulsing as her heart rhythm spikes into dangerous territory. Junho stands pressed against the far wall, his face white with terror as nurses work around the bed with practiced efficiency. "What happened?" Shanice demands, immediately taking charge of the situation. "She woke up asking for water," Jennifer reports, her hands steady as she adjusts medication drips. Heart rate spiked to 180, then she started seizing. Shanice moves to Minjun's bedside, her training overriding every emotion as she assesses the child's condition. But as she places her stethoscope against the tiny chest, she hears something that makes her blood freeze. An irregular rhythm that suggests something far more serious than they initially diagnosed. "Get me a portable echo machine," she orders, "and call the surgical team. I think we missed something." From across the room, Junho's voice is barely audible. Will she? Shanice glances up long enough to meet his eyes. In them, she sees the same desperate love she remembers from her own father's face during Keisha's final days. The look of someone watching their world collapse in real time. "We're going to find out what's wrong," she promises, "and then we're going to fix it." But as the echo machine reveals the hidden defect in Minjun's heart, a complex malformation that will require immediate surgery, Shanice realizes that some promises require more than medical skill to keep. Sometimes they require the kind of faith that only comes from understanding that love and loss are separated by heartbeats too fragile to waste on professional boundaries. The surgical consultation room smells like disinfectant and difficult decisions. Minjun's chest x-rays line the wall like accusations, showing the complex heart defect that somehow escaped detection during her initial examination. Junho sits across from Shanice and Dr. Richardson, the chief of pediatric cardiology, while Secretary Park takes notes with the grim efficiency of someone managing a crisis. "The septal defect is larger than we initially realized," Dr. Richardson explains, his voice carrying the weight of 40 years in pediatric surgery. Combined with the valve malformation, it's creating a cascade effect that explains the recent episodes. Junho stares at the x-rays, trying to find hope in the shadows and light that represent his daughter's heart. "Can you fix it?" The surgery is complex but possible. However, given the delicate nature of the repair and the child's previous cardiac history, I'd recommend transferring her to Children's Hospital where we have more advanced. "No." The word comes out sharper than Junho intended. "Minjun stays here, with Dr. Howard." Dr. Richardson exchanges a glance with Shanice that carries layers of hospital politics and professional hierarchy. "Mr. Lee, I understand your confidence in Dr. Howard, but this surgery requires..." "Dr. Howard saved my daughter's life twice in the last 12 hours, Junho interrupts. "She found the problem everyone else missed. She stays with Minjun." Shanice feels the weight of expectation settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. The surgery Richardson is describing pushes the boundaries of her experience, requiring precision that leaves no room for the emotional investment Elena Martinez warned her about. But as she looks at Minjun's sleeping face through the glass partition, she hears Keisha's voice in her memory. "Promise me you'll save all the ones you can reach." "I'll need to scrub in as primary," Shanice says quietly. "Dr. Richardson, I'd welcome your assistance, but this is my patient." Richardson studies her for a long moment, seeing something in her expression that makes him nod slowly. "Very well, but I want full cardiac bypass team standing by, and if anything goes wrong, it's on me." Shanice stands, her decision made. "Mr. Lee, I need to explain the risks. This surgery, there's no guarantee." Junho stands as well, moving to the window where he can see Minjun surrounded by monitors and machinery that keep her stable, but can't keep her safe. "Dr. Howard," he says softly, 3 years ago, my wife died during what should have been routine surgery. The doctors were experienced. The hospital had an excellent reputation, and I trusted them completely. He turns from the window, and Shanice sees tears threatening at the corners of his eyes. She died because they treated her like a case number instead of a person. They followed protocols instead of instincts. They were so worried about making the wrong choice that they forgot to make the brave one. The room falls silent except for the distant sound of hospital life, intercoms and footsteps, and the low murmur of families dealing with their own impossible decisions. I don't want Min-jun to be treated like a case number, Junho continues. I want her treated like she's the most important person in the world, because to me, she is. You've already proven you see her that way. Shanice feels something shift inside her chest. Not the clinical detachment she's been trained to maintain, but the fierce protective love that made her choose pediatric medicine in the first place. I'll take care of her, she promises, like she's my own. As the meeting breaks up and preparations for surgery begin, Secretary Park approaches Shanice with the quiet formality that characterizes all his interactions. Dr. Howard, if I may, Mr. Lee's mother is flying in from Seoul tonight. She's very concerned about the level of care Min-jun is receiving. What kind of concerns? Park glances toward where Junho stands by Min-jun's bedside, speaking to his daughter in soft Korean. Mrs. Lee has strong opinions about American medicine and about appropriate matches between doctors and patients. The implication hangs in the air like smoke from a fire that hasn't started burning yet. Shanice has dealt with prejudice before, subtle and not so subtle, but never in a situation where a child's life hung in the balance. Mr. Park, she says carefully, Min-jun is my patient. Her medical care won't be influenced by anyone's opinions about appropriate matches. Of course not. I'm simply preparing you. His expression softens slightly. Mr. Lee's family has very traditional views about many things. His choice to trust you may cause complications. Before Shanice can respond, her pager buzzes with an urgent message from the surgical scheduling desk. Min-jun's surgery has been moved up. Her heart rhythm is becoming increasingly unstable, and they're running out of time to repair the defect before it becomes irreparable. 2 hours, she tells Junho as she passes Min-jun's room. We go in 2 hours. He nods, his hand resting gently on his daughter's forehead. She'll be ready. But as Shanice heads to the surgical prep area, she wonders if she'll be ready. Not for the technical challenges of the surgery. Her hands are steady and her knowledge is sharp. But for the emotional weight of holding this family's entire future in her palms. In the hallway, she passes Dr. Martinez, who stops her with a hand on her arm. Shanice, I heard about the surgery. Are you sure about this? I'm sure. Because if something goes wrong, if you lose this child, it won't just end your career. It'll destroy you. Elena's voice carries genuine concern beneath the professional warning. I've seen what happens when doctors get too attached. The failures become personal, and personal failures are the kind that follow you home. Shanice looks back toward Min-jun's room, where Junho continues his vigil with the patient devotion of someone who's already lost too much. The failures are already personal, Elena. The only difference is whether I admit it or not. As she pushes through the doors to begin surgical prep, Shanice carries with her the weight of every promise she's ever made, to Keisha, to Min-jun, to the profession that chose her as much as she chose it. But some promises can only be kept with scalpels and steady hands, and the kind of love that refuses to let go, even when letting go might be safer for everyone involved. The operating room at Presbyterian Hospital transforms into a cathedral of controlled tension as Min-jun's surgery begins. Shanice stands over the tiny patient, her hands steady, despite the weight of expectation pressing down like atmospheric pressure before a storm. The cardiac monitors paint their electronic poetry across dark screens, while the surgical team moves with the choreographed precision of people who've learned that every second counts when you're repairing hearts. "Scalpel," Shanice requests, and Nurse Patricia places the instrument in her palm with the kind of trust that comes from working hundreds of cases together. "Minjun, sweetheart, we're going to fix that heart of yours." She speaks to unconscious patients during surgery, a habit that earned raised eyebrows during her residency, but has become part of her signature approach. Some colleagues call it unprofessional. Shanice calls it human. In the observation gallery, Junho watches through reinforced glass, his hands pressed against the barrier that separates him from his daughter's most critical moment. Secretary Park stands beside him, offering silent support and the occasional translation when medical terminology exceeds Junho's English vocabulary. The CEO of Lee Industries, a man who commands boardrooms and negotiates million-dollar deals, has been reduced to a father who can only watch and pray and trust. "Opening the pericardium now," Shanice announces for the benefit of the recording equipment and the surgical residents observing from the corner. But her voice carries an intimacy that makes it sound like she's speaking directly to Minjun. "Your daddy is watching, baby girl. He loves you so much." Dr. Richardson, scrubbed in as her assistant, maintains the professional silence that characterizes most cardiac surgeries. But as Shanice begins the delicate work of repairing Minjun's septal defect, he finds himself impressed by her intuitive understanding of the tiny heart's anatomy. Her movements are confident without being rushed, precise without being rigid. "The defect is larger than the imaging suggested," she murmurs, adjusting her approach as she encounters the reality of Minjun's condition. "But the surrounding tissue looks healthy. We can work with this." 20 minutes into the surgery, Minjun's heart rhythm begins to show irregularities that make the monitors sing urgent warnings. Blood pressure drops, oxygen saturation falls, and suddenly the controlled environment erupts into organized crisis management. "What's happening?" Junho's voice carries through the glass, though he knows no one in the operating room can hear him. "Bradycardia," Richardson calls out, his voice sharp with concern, heart rate dropping to dangerous levels. Shanice's hands never pause in their work, though everyone in the room can see the monitors painting increasingly alarming pictures. It's the trauma response to the repair. Her heart is protecting itself by slowing down. "Should we consider bypass?" Richardson asks, though they both know that putting a 15-month-old on cardiac bypass carries risks that could be worse than the current crisis. "Not yet." Shanice's voice carries absolute authority. "Minjun, I need you to fight a little longer. Your daddy needs you to be strong." As if responding to her voice, Minjun's heart rhythm begins to stabilize. Not completely, not safely, but enough to allow Shanice to continue the repair that could save the child's life, or end it. In the gallery, Junho's phone buzzes with an incoming call from Seoul, his mother, demanding updates, and probably preparing to second-guess every decision he's made since arriving in New York. He declines the call, without looking away from the operating room, where his daughter's life hangs in the balance of one young doctor's skill and determination. 30 more minutes, Park murmurs, more to himself than to Junho. The surgery was scheduled for 2 hours total. But surgeries don't follow schedules when complications arise. As Shanice works to repair the valve malformation that represents the second half of Minjun's cardiac defect, she discovers scarring from previous episodes that makes the tissue fragile and difficult to suture. "Talk to me, Dr. Howard," Richardson says quietly, sensing her hesitation. "The valve is damaged worse than we thought. If I repair it conventionally, the sutures might not hold. But if I use the experimental technique..." She trails off, knowing that experimental techniques come with experimental risks. Through the glass, Junho sees the surgical team's body language change. Shoulders tense, voices drop to urgent whispers, and suddenly, the woman he's trusted with his daughter's life looks uncertain for the first time since they met. Dr. Howard. Richardson's voice carries the weight of 40 years of surgical experience. What are you thinking? Shanice stares down at Minjun's exposed heart, this tiny organ that pumps blood through a body that weighs barely 20 pounds, that carries all of Junho's hopes and represents all of Shanice's professional promises. In this moment, everything she's learned about medicine, about healing, about the balance between taking risks and playing it safe, comes down to a choice between techniques. I'm thinking, she says slowly, that Minjun deserves the technique that gives her the best chance at a normal life, not the one that makes me feel safe. She chooses the experimental approach. The next 40 minutes test everyone in the room. Shanice's surgical skill, Richardson's mentoring patients, the surgical team's ability to adapt to unexpected techniques, and Junho's faith in the young doctor who promised to treat his daughter like her own. When Minjun's heart rhythm finally stabilizes into the strong, steady beat of successful repair, the operating room erupts in quiet celebration. Monitors show normal heart function, blood pressure returns to healthy levels, and the tiny patient breathes steadily on her own. Beautiful work, Dr. Howard, Richardson says, and the praise from the chief of pediatric surgery feels like vindication of every risk Shanice has taken. But it's the moment when Minjun's eyes flutter open in the recovery room, focusing immediately on her father's face, that makes the 8-hour surgery worthwhile. Junho's tears fall freely as he speaks to his daughter in soft Korean, and Minjun's small hand reaches toward him with the instinctive trust of a child who knows she's completely loved. Thank you, Junho whispers to Shanice, and in those 2 words she hears the weight of a father's gratitude and the promise of something that might grow beyond professional care. But gratitude and growing feelings can't protect either of them from the storm that's about to arrive on the next flight from Seoul. The ICU recovery room smells like antiseptic and new beginnings. Minjun sleeps peacefully in her hospital bed, surrounded by monitors that now sing reassuring songs instead of urgent warnings. Her small chest rises and falls with the steady rhythm of a heart that works properly for the first time in her short life. Beside her bed, Junho maintains his vigil with the devoted attention of someone who's learned that miracles require witnesses. Her color is so much better, he observes, his voice soft with wonder. I'd forgotten what she looked like without the blue tinge around her lips. Shanice checks the surgical site with gentle efficiency, her fingers light against the bandaged incision. The repair is holding perfectly. Her heart is pumping blood more effectively than it ever has before. She glances at Junho, seeing the exhaustion and relief warring across his features. When was the last time you went home, or showered, or ate something that wasn't from a hospital vending machine? Home is a hotel room. Shower can wait. Food doesn't matter. His response is immediate and absolute. Only Minjun matters. There's something in his devotion that reminds Shanice of her own father during Keisha's illness. The way love becomes so focused, it burns like a laser, cutting away everything that doesn't directly serve the beloved's survival. She's stable now, Mr. Lee. You could rest for a few hours without... No. The word comes out sharper than he intended, and he softens his tone immediately. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be difficult, but I made a promise to my wife before she died. I promised I'd never leave Minjun alone in a hospital again. The pain in his voice opens a window into grief that Shanice recognizes from her own experience. What happened to your wife? Junho is quiet for so long that she thinks he won't answer. Then, slowly, he begins to speak. Routine surgery to remove her appendix. The kind of procedure that's performed thousands of times every day. But there were complications. An allergic reaction to the anesthesia that no one anticipated. I was at a board meeting when it happened. By the time I got to the hospital, he stops, his hands clenching and unclenching as he relives the worst day of his life. She died alone, thinking I'd chosen business over her. And maybe I did. Maybe I was so focused on building our future that I forgot to protect our present. His eyes never leave Minjun's sleeping face. I won't make that mistake again. Shanice feels her professional boundaries shifting again, the careful distance she's supposed to maintain eroding under the weight of shared understanding. Mr. Lee. Junho. He corrects quietly. After everything you've done for my daughter, I think we can use first names. Junho, she tries, and the name feels right on her tongue. I lost my sister when I was 16. Heart defect that went undiagnosed until it was too late. I know what it feels like to blame yourself for not doing enough, for not seeing the signs, for choosing the wrong priorities when time was running out. They look at each other across Minjun's bed, two people united by loss and the desperate desire to save what can still be saved. In that moment, something shifts between them. Not just doctor and patient's father, but two souls who understand that love and medical crisis create bonds that can't be explained by professional protocol. The moment is interrupted by the sharp sound of expensive heels on hospital linoleum. Han Young-suk enters the ICU with the commanding presence of someone accustomed to deference, her designer handbag and perfectly styled hair completely out of place in the medical environment. Behind her walks Secretary Kim, a younger woman whose anxious expression suggests she's been managing her employer's displeasure for the entire flight from Seoul. Junho. His mother's voice carries the particular tone reserved for family members who've made questionable decisions. Her gaze sweeps the room, taking in the medical equipment, the modest accommodations, and, with particular sharpness, the young black doctor who stands beside her granddaughter's bed. Mother. Junho stands, his posture automatically straightening into the formal courtesy that characterizes Korean family relationships. You didn't need to come. Minjun is recovering well. Of course I came. My granddaughter is in a foreign hospital, receiving care from... Young-suk's gaze lands on Shanice with the assessing look of someone evaluating a potential threat. I'm sorry, you are? Dr. Shanice Howard. Shanice introduces herself with professional calm, extending her hand. I'm Minjun's cardiac surgeon. Young-suk stares at the offered hand for a moment too long, before accepting it with the barest touch possible. I see. And your credentials? Your experience with pediatric cardiac surgery? The questions are phrased with polite courtesy, but their intent is unmistakable. Shanice feels the familiar weight of having to prove herself worthy of trust, of having her competence questioned not because of her medical record, but because of her youth and appearance. I graduated from Johns Hopkins, completed my residency at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and have been practicing pediatric cardiology for 4 years, she responds evenly. Minjun's surgery was successful, and her prognosis is excellent. 4 years, Young-suk repeats, as if tasting something bitter. And you're how old? Mother. Junho's voice carries a warning that Shanice doesn't miss. Dr. Howard saved Minjun's life. I'm sure she did her best with her limited experience. Young-suk moves to Minjun's bedside, her expression softening as she looks at her sleeping granddaughter. But now that I'm here, we should discuss transferring her to Seoul National University Hospital, where she can receive care from doctors with more extensive backgrounds. The room falls silent, except for the quiet beeping of monitors and the distant sounds of hospital life. Shanice feels her professional confidence wavering under the assault of doubt and cultural dismissal, while Junho faces the familiar pressure of choosing between his family's expectations and his own judgment. Minjun isn't going anywhere, he says finally, his voice quiet but absolute. She's staying here until she's fully recovered, under Dr. Howard's care. Young-suk turns from her granddaughter to face her son, and the temperature in the room seems to drop several degrees. Junho, you're emotionally compromised. You're not thinking clearly about what's best for Minjun. "What's best for Minjun?" he replies. "Is the doctor who figured out what was wrong with her heart when no one else could. The doctor who performed surgery that other surgeons said was too risky. The doctor who treats my daughter like she matters. The doctor," Young-suk's voice sharpens with the particular cruelty that families save for their most devastating attacks, "who is young enough to be making rookie mistakes that could cost Minjun her life." Before anyone can respond, Minjun stirs in her bed, her eyes opening to focus on the unfamiliar voices. She looks around the room with the confused alertness of someone emerging from anesthesia, and her gaze settles on Shanice with immediate recognition and trust. "Dr. Lady," she whispers in careful English, the words barely audible but clear in their affection. "You fixed my heart." Shanice moves to the bedside, her professional demeanor automatically softening into the gentle warmth she reserves for her smallest patients. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you feeling?" "Better. My chest doesn't hurt like before." Minjun's hand reaches toward Shanice, and the doctor takes it gently, mindful of the IV line and monitoring wires. Young-suk watches this interaction with calculating eyes, seeing something in her granddaughter's immediate trust that challenges her assumptions about appropriate medical care. But before she can comment, Minjun's attention turns to her grandmother for the first time. "Halmoni?" The child's voice carries uncertainty, as if she's not sure whether to trust this elegant stranger who speaks Korean like home, but feels nothing like safety. "Yes, my darling. Halmoni is here now." Young-suk's voice transforms when she speaks to Minjun, becoming warm and loving in a way that reveals the grandmother beneath the corporate matriarch. "Everything is going to be fine." But as Minjun's eyes drift back to Shanice with clear preference, Young-suk realizes that winning her granddaughter's loyalty might require more than cultural expectation and family authority. Sometimes trust has to be earned one heartbeat at a time, and the war for Minjun's future is just beginning. The morning after Young-suk's arrival brings subtle but unmistakable changes to Minjun's care. The child's room fills with expensive flowers and imported Korean snacks, while Secretary Kim maintains a constant presence in the hallway, conducting hushed phone conversations in rapid Korean. The atmosphere feels charged with unspoken tension, as if everyone is waiting for a storm that hasn't quite arrived yet. Shanice enters Minjun's room for the morning rounds to find 3 generations of the Lee family arranged around the hospital bed in a tableau that speaks volumes about power dynamics. Young-suk sits in the visitor's chair like it's a throne, her posture regal and her attention focused completely on Minjun. Junho stands by the window, his position suggesting both protection of his daughter and distance from his mother. And Minjun herself sits up in bed, looking small and confused by the adult tension surrounding her recovery. "Good morning, Minjun," Shanice says brightly, focusing on her patient rather than the family politics. "How did you sleep?" "The beeping stopped being scary," Minjun responds in English, then switches to Korean to repeat something similar for her grandmother's benefit. "Dr. Lady, when can I go home with Appa?" It's an innocent question, but it lands in the room like a small explosion. Young-suk's expression sharpens, Junho's jaw tightens, and Shanice realizes she's just walked into the middle of a conversation that's been building all night. "We need to discuss Minjun's long-term care plan," Young-suk announces, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making decisions for other people. "I've been consulting with cardiac specialists in Seoul, and they've recommended immediate transfer to Korea University Hospital for follow-up care." Shanice checks Minjun's chart, buying herself time to navigate the diplomatic minefield that pediatric medicine sometimes becomes. Minjun's recovery is progressing beautifully. Her heart function is better than we dared hope, and she should be ready for discharge in 3 to 4 days. "Discharge to where?" Young-suk asks pointedly. "My son has been living in hotels and hospital waiting rooms for weeks. My granddaughter has no stable home environment in New York. Clearly, the logical choice is to return to Seoul, where she can receive proper care from doctors with extensive experience in her specific cardiac condition. The criticism is wrapped in concern for Minjun's welfare, but Shanice hears the underlying attack on her competence. She's dealt with this before. Family members who question her ability based on her age or appearance, who assume that good medicine only comes from doctors who look like their expectations. Mrs. Lee, Shanice responds carefully. Minjun's condition is now manageable with regular follow-up care. Any competent pediatric cardiologist can monitor her progress. The important thing is consistency and... Exactly my point, Young-suk interrupts. Consistency. Which is why she should be treated by the same medical team throughout her childhood, not passed between different doctors as her father's business requires him to travel. Junho finally speaks, his voice quiet but firm. Mother, we've discussed this. Minjun and I are staying in New York for the foreseeable future. I'm opening a U.S. office for Lee Industries, and she'll attend school here. That's a very expensive way to avoid making difficult decisions, Young-suk observes, and her tone carries the particular sharpness that family members use when they're trying to inflict maximum damage with minimum words. But I suppose you've become accustomed to expensive solutions to emotional problems. The attack is subtle, but devastating, implying that Junho's decision to keep Minjun in New York is based on his growing attachment to Shanice, rather than his daughter's medical needs. Both doctor and patient's father freeze, recognizing the accusation for what it is. My decisions are based entirely on what's best for Minjun, Junho says, his voice carefully controlled. Are they? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like your judgment is being influenced by... Young-suk's gaze slides to Shanice. Personal considerations that have nothing to do with medical care. The room falls silent except for the monitor beeps and Minjun's innocent humming as she plays with a small toy piano that someone has brought to entertain her. The child is oblivious to the adult drama surrounding her recovery, focused instead on creating tiny melodies that sound remarkably sophisticated for someone so young. Shanice realizes that this is the moment she's been dreading, when her professional relationship with the Lee family becomes complicated by emotions that extend beyond doctor-patient boundaries. The rational response would be to recommend Minjun's transfer to another physician, to step back from the case before personal feelings compromise her medical judgment. Instead, she finds herself stepping closer to Minjun's bedside, her protective instincts overriding professional caution. Mrs. Lee, I understand your concerns about Minjun's long-term care. Any parent or grandparent would want the best possible treatment for their child. But Minjun's heart surgery was successful because we took the time to understand her specific condition, her individual needs, and her unique response to treatment. Transferring her care now could disrupt the recovery process in ways that might not be immediately apparent. Young-suk studies Shanice with calculating eyes. Doctor. Howard, how many pediatric heart surgeries have you performed? The question is a trap, and everyone in the room knows it. Shanice's experience, while impressive for her age, can't compete with senior cardiac surgeons who have decades of practice. But her success rate with complex cases is exceptional, and Minjun's recovery speaks for itself. 47 cardiac surgeries in 4 years of practice. Shanice answers honestly. 94% success rate, including cases that other surgeons considered too risky to attempt. And how many Korean children have you treated? Another trap. The implication is that Minjun's Korean heritage somehow makes her medical needs different from other children. That cultural understanding is required for cardiac surgery. Hearts don't have nationality, Mrs. Lee, Shanice responds. They have anatomy, physiology, and individual variations that require careful attention regardless of the patient's background. Before Young-suk can respond, Minjun looks up from her toy piano and speaks in clear English. Dr. Lady makes my heart happy. It doesn't hurt anymore when I breathe. The simple statement from a child who can't understand adult politics cuts through the tension like a blade. Young-suk's expression softens as she looks at her granddaughter, seeing the improved color in her cheeks, the easy breathing, the energy that speaks of successful healing. "Minjuna," she says gently in Korean. "Tell Halmoni about the nice doctor." Minjun switches languages with the fluid ease of bilingual children, chattering about Shanice's gentle hands, her pretty stethoscope, and the way she hums while checking heartbeats. As Young-suk listens to her granddaughter's enthusiastic praise, something in her expression begins to shift. But just as the conversation seems to be moving toward resolution, Dr. Martinez appears in the doorway with an expression that suggests urgent business. "Dr. Howard, I need to speak with you privately. It's about the Lee case." The formal use of surnames and the reference to Minjun as the Lee case sends a chill through the room. Shanice recognizes the tone. It's the voice of hospital administration intervening in medical decisions, and it never means good news for the attending physician. "Of course, Dr. Martinez," Shanice responds professionally, though her hands begin to tremble slightly as she follows her colleague from the room. In the hallway, Elena's expression is a mixture of professional concern and personal satisfaction. "Shanice, we've received some inquiries about Minjun's case. Questions about protocol, about whether proper oversight was maintained during the surgical procedure." "What kind of inquiries?" "The kind that come from powerful families who have concerns about the level of care their loved ones are receiving." Elena's voice drops to a confidential whisper. "Mrs. Lee contacted the hospital board this morning. She's questioning whether you followed proper consultation procedures before attempting experimental surgical techniques on her granddaughter." The accusation hits Shanice like a physical blow. The experimental valve repair that saved Minjun's life is now being characterized as reckless endangerment by a family member with the financial resources to make such accusations stick. "The surgical technique was necessary and appropriate," Shanice says firmly. Dr. Richardson was in the room, the surgical team was fully briefed, and Minjun's outcome validates the decision. "That's your professional opinion." Unfortunately, professional opinions are being questioned by people with the influence to make those questions matter. Elena's expression softens slightly. "Shanice, I tried to warn you about getting too involved. Now it might cost you everything." Through the glass window of Minjun's room, Shanice can see Junho standing protectively beside his daughter's bed, while Young-suk speaks in urgent Korean. The body language suggests an argument that's been building for hours, maybe days. And suddenly Shanice realizes that saving Minjun's heart might have broken her own career beyond repair. In the hallway, Richardson walks beside Shanice with the measured pace of someone who's fought these battles before. "Elena Martinez has been gunning for your position since you arrived," he says without preamble. "She's 15 years older, has half your success rate, and can't stand that patients request you specifically." "Doctor Richardson, I appreciate your support in there, but nothing. You saved that child's life with skill and courage. Don't let hospital politics make you doubt that." He pauses by the elevator bank, his expression serious. "Shanice, excellent doctors are rare. Doctors who combine technical skill with genuine compassion are even rarer. Don't let them turn that compassion into a weakness." As Richardson disappears into the elevator, Shanice realizes she needs to check on Minjun, not just as her doctor, but as someone who's become emotionally invested in the child's recovery, despite every professional warning against such attachment. Minjun's room has been transformed into something resembling a Korean palace in miniature. Young-suk has arranged traditional flowers and imported snacks, while Secretary Kim maintains a constant presence with tablets and phones, conducting business that seems to revolve around managing the family crisis from multiple time zones. "Dr. Lady." Minjun's face lights up as Shanice enters, and the child's obvious joy cuts through the tension that's been building all morning. Look what Halmoni brought me. She holds up a small hanbok, traditional Korean dress in miniature, embroidered with flowers and butterflies. She says I can wear it when I'm strong enough to go home. It's beautiful, Shanice agrees, genuinely charmed by the child's excitement. How are you feeling today? Any pain in your chest? No pain. Just happy feelings. Minjun demonstrates by taking deep breaths, her small chest rising and falling with the easy rhythm of healthy lungs receiving adequate oxygen for the first time in her life. Young-suk watches this interaction with calculating eyes, her expression gradually shifting from professional assessment to something more personal. Dr. Howard, she says carefully, may I speak with you privately? Junho looks up from his position by the window, his body language suggesting he's prepared to intervene if his mother's private conversation becomes another attack on Shanice's competence. Of course, Mrs. Lee. They move to the family consultation room down the hall, a space designed for difficult conversations about pediatric medical care. Young-suk settles into one of the institutional chairs with the regal bearing that seems to be her natural state, while Shanice takes the seat across from her with professional composure that masks growing apprehension. Dr. Howard, I owe you an apology. The words are so unexpected that Shanice momentarily wonders if she misheard. Mrs. Lee, I came here prepared to dislike you. I expected to find someone taking advantage of my son's grief and vulnerability, someone using my granddaughter's illness to manipulate a wealthy family. Young-suk's voice carries the particular tone of someone admitting to being wrong about something important. I was prepared to use my influence to have you removed from Minjun's case. I see. Shanice keeps her voice neutral, though her heart rate increases as she realizes how close she came to losing everything. But I've spent 2 days watching you with my granddaughter. I've seen how she responds to your voice, how she trusts your touch, how she lights up when you enter the room. Young-suk pauses, her expression softening. More importantly, I've seen the medical miracle you performed on her heart. The room falls quiet, except for the distant sounds of hospital life. Shanice waits, understanding that Young-suk is building towards something significant. In Korea, we have a saying, 정성이 지극하면 돌도 뚫는다. It means that if sincerity is extreme, it can penetrate even stone. Young-suk looks directly at Shanice. Your sincerity has penetrated this grandmother's stubborn heart. The admission comes with obvious difficulty, and Shanice recognizes the cultural complexity of a Korean elder acknowledging error to a younger foreign professional. Mrs. Lee, I understand your concerns about Minjun's care. Any grandmother would want to ensure. Dr. Howard. Young-suk interrupts gently. I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer with complete honesty. Of course. Are you in love with my son? The question hangs in the air like a challenge. Shanice feels her professional composure wavering under the weight of emotions she's been trying to deny even to herself. Mrs. Lee, my feelings for your family don't interfere with... That's not what I asked. Young-suk's voice carries the particular authority of someone accustomed to getting straight answers to difficult questions. I asked if you're in love with Junho. Shanice stares at her hands, realizing that this conversation has moved far beyond professional boundaries into territory where honesty might be more dangerous than diplomacy. I care about both of them very much. Caring and loving are different things. The distinction forces Shanice to confront feelings she's been avoiding since the night Junho first brought Minjun to the emergency room. The desperate father, the sick child, the gradual building of trust and connection. Somewhere in the midst of medical crisis, professional admiration had transformed into something deeper and more complicated. Yes, she admits quietly, I think I am in love with him. Young-suk nods as if this confirms something she already suspected. And does he know? We've never discussed anything personal. Our entire relationship has been focused on Minjun's medical care. Dr. Howard, Shanice. May I call you Shanice? At the younger woman's nod, Young-suk continues. My son has been dead inside since his wife died. Oh, he functions, he works. He takes care of Min-jun with devoted attention. But the man who used to laugh, who used to dream about the future, who used to believe in happiness, that man disappeared the day we buried his wife. The pain in Young-suk's voice reveals the depth of her concern for her son's emotional health. I came here expecting to protect him from someone who might take advantage of his grief. Instead, I find someone who might help him remember how to live again. Before Shanice can respond, Young-suk continues. But love between two people from different cultures, different backgrounds, different worlds, it's complicated in ways that good intentions can't always overcome. Mrs. Lee, I would never do anything to hurt Junho or Min-jun. I believe you. But sometimes love hurts people even when we're trying our best to protect them. Young-suk stands, smoothing her designer dress with automatic elegance. Shanice, I'm withdrawing my complaint to the hospital administration. Min-jun's surgery was successful. Her recovery is progressing beautifully, and she clearly adores you. That's what matters. Relief floods through Shanice so powerfully that she feels momentarily lightheaded. Thank you, Mrs. Lee. But I need to ask one more thing of you. If you truly love my son, you'll consider very carefully whether pursuing that love is in his best interests, and Min-jun's. The request lands like a weight on Shanice's chest. Young-suk is asking her to consider stepping back from the family she's grown to love, to choose Junho's long-term happiness over her own growing feelings. I understand, Shanice says quietly. As they return to Min-jun's room, they find father and daughter engaged in a quiet conversation in Korean. Min-jun is showing Junho something on her toy piano, her small fingers picking out a melody, while he listens with the devoted attention of someone for whom this child represents his entire world. When Min-jun sees Shanice return, she switches to English, with the linguistic flexibility of bilingual children. Dr. Lady, listen to my song. Appa says it sounds like the music Mama used to play. She begins a simple melody, her tiny fingers finding notes that somehow create something beautiful, despite the limitations of the toy instrument. As the music fills the room, Shanice sees Junho's expression transform. Not the corporate executive managing a crisis, not the desperate father fighting for his daughter's life, but a man remembering joy. And in that moment, she realizes that loving someone sometimes means choosing their happiness over your own presence in their story. The elevator at Presbyterian Hospital moves with the mechanical steadiness of institutional efficiency, but the silence inside feels charged with unspoken tension. Shanice and Junho stand on opposite sides of the small space, both staring at the floor numbers as they descend from Min-jun's room to the pharmacy where she needs to pick up post-operative medications. My mother spoke with you today, Junho says finally, his voice carrying the careful neutrality of someone navigating dangerous conversational territory. She withdrew her complaint to the hospital administration, Shanice responds professionally. She was satisfied with Min-jun's care. That's not what I meant. The elevator stops on the 4th floor, doors opening to reveal Dr. Martinez waiting to board. She takes in the scene, Shanice and Junho standing carefully apart, the obvious tension between them, the way they both fall silent at her presence, and her expression sharpens with professional interest. Dr. Howard, Mr. Lee. Elena acknowledges them with formal courtesy. How is Min-jun's recovery progressing? Excellently, Shanice replies. She should be ready for discharge tomorrow. Wonderful. And the long-term care plan? Will she be following up with cardiology here in New York, or? Elena's voice trails off, with the particular inflection of someone fishing for information. Junho answers before Shanice can respond. Min-jun will be staying in New York for the foreseeable future. I'm opening a permanent U.S. office for my company. Elena's eyebrows rise slightly. How convenient. I'm sure Dr. Howard will be able to provide excellent ongoing care. The words are professionally appropriate, but the tone carries undertones that make both Shanice and Junho uncomfortable. The elevator reaches the ground floor, and Elena exits with a polite nod that somehow feels like a threat. As the doors close and the elevator begins its ascent back to the pediatric ward, Junho finally speaks. She knows. Knows what? That this isn't just about Minjun's medical care anymore. His voice is quiet, almost resigned. My mother knows. Dr. Martinez knows. Probably half the hospital staff knows. Shanice feels her heart rate increase as the conversation moves into territory she's been avoiding. Junho, whatever people think they see, what do they see, Shanice? He turns to face her fully for the first time, and she realizes how carefully they've been avoiding direct eye contact for the past several days. Because I know what I see when I look at you. The elevator seems to slow. Or maybe time itself is stretching to accommodate this moment that feels both inevitable and dangerous. Shanice looks into Junho's eyes and sees the same confusion and longing that she's been fighting in herself. I see the woman who saved my daughter's life, he continues. I see someone who treats a sick child like she's precious beyond measure. I see someone who makes me remember what it feels like to hope for something more than just surviving each day. His words create a physical ache in Shanice's chest. The pain of wanting something that professional ethics and cultural complications make impossible to reach for. Junho, I know all the reasons this is complicated. I know my mother has concerns about cultural differences. I know your colleagues are questioning your professional judgment. I know that getting involved with a patient's father violates medical ethics. He pauses, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. But I also know that I haven't felt this alive since my wife died. The elevator reaches their floor, but neither moves toward the doors. They stand frozen in this small space where honesty has finally escaped the careful boundaries they've maintained. Your wife, Shanice says carefully. Tell me about her. Something shifts in Junho's expression, not the sharp pain of fresh grief, but the softer ache of remembered love. So young was sunshine. She laughed at everything, found joy in small moments, believed that every day held possibilities for happiness. When she was pregnant with Minjun, she used to play piano for hours, convinced that the baby could hear music and that it would make her heart strong. He smiles at the memory, and Shanice sees glimpses of the man he must have been before tragedy redefined his world. She died thinking I chose work over her, that I prioritized a board meeting over being by her side when she needed me most. I've lived with that guilt for 3 years. But you didn't know she was in danger. I should have known. I should have been there. I should have protected her. His voice carries the weight of self-blame that grief often creates. And now I find myself caring about someone else, wondering if I have the right to feel this way when I failed so young so completely. The elevator doors begin to close, then open again as the motion sensors detect their presence. The mechanical rhythm creates a metronome for this conversation that's reshaping both their worlds. Junho, Shanice says gently. Loving someone new doesn't dishonor someone you've lost. Your wife would want you to be happy. How can you know that? Because she was a mother. And mothers want their children to have fathers who remember how to smile, how to hope, how to believe in possibilities. Shanice takes a small step closer, drawn by the pain in his voice. Minjun needs you to heal, not just survive. They're standing close enough now that she can see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, can smell the faint scent of his cologne mixed with hospital antiseptic. The space between them feels charged with electromagnetic possibility. Shanice, he whispers, and her name on his lips sounds like prayer and confession combined. This is dangerous, she whispers back, but doesn't step away. I know. Your mother thinks we should consider whether pursuing this is wise. What do you think? Before she can answer, the elevator lurches slightly and stops between floors. The overhead lights flicker, and an automated voice announces that they're experiencing a temporary mechanical delay. They're trapped together in this small space, forced into proximity that makes avoidance impossible. In the sudden dimness, their breathing sounds unnaturally loud, their hearts beating in rhythms that seem to echo off the metal walls. I think, Shanice says carefully, that I've never felt this way about anyone before. I think you and Min-jun have become the most important part of my world, and that terrifies me because I don't know how to separate my feelings for you from my responsibility to her. And I think, Junho responds, that I'm in love with a woman who saw my daughter's heart with more clarity than any doctor we'd consulted before, who treated her with more tenderness than I dared hope for, who makes me believe that maybe I deserve a second chance at happiness. The admission hangs between them like a bridge they're both afraid to cross. Outside the elevator, the hospital continues its 24-hour rhythm of healing and crisis. But inside this temporarily broken machine, two people face the choice between professional safety and emotional truth. If we cross this line, Shanice whispers, there's no going back. I crossed that line the night you saved Min-jun's life, he replies. I've been in love with you since you promised to treat my daughter like your own. The elevator lurches back to life, resuming its upward journey with mechanical indifference to the human drama it contains. As they approach the pediatric floor, both Shanice and Junho realize that something fundamental has changed between them. Not just attraction or professional admiration, but the deep recognition of two souls who understand each other's wounds and possibilities. But love confessed in elevator breakdowns still has to survive in the bright, fluorescent reality of hospitals, where ethics committees and cultural expectations cast long shadows over every choice. The pediatric ward at midnight operates in whispers and soft-soled shoes, a world where healing happens in the quiet hours when the rest of the city sleeps. Shanice makes her final rounds of the evening, checking on patients who range from newborns recovering from surgery to teenagers dealing with chronic conditions that will shape their entire lives. Min-jun's room glows with the soft light of monitoring equipment and the warm yellow lamp that Young-suk insisted on bringing from home. The grandmother sits in the visitor's chair, having taken over the night watch from her son with the determined efficiency of someone managing a family crisis across multiple time zones. She's been asking for you, Young-suk says softly as Shanice enters. Every time she wakes up, she wants to know where the doctor lady is. Min-jun sleeps peacefully, her small form barely making an impression on the hospital bed. Her breathing is steady and unlabored, her color healthy pink instead of the dusky blue that had characterized her appearance before surgery. To anyone who didn't know her medical history, she would look like any normal toddler taking an afternoon nap. Her recovery has been remarkable, Shanice observes, checking the surgical site with practiced gentleness. I've rarely seen such rapid improvement after complex cardiac repair. Strong heart, Young-suk agrees, like her mother. The mention of So Young creates a moment of shared silence, acknowledgement of the woman whose absence shapes every aspect of this family's current situation. Shanice has heard fragments of the story, the young wife who died during routine surgery, leaving behind a husband consumed with guilt, and a daughter with a heart that needed more medical intervention than Korean doctors could provide. Mrs. Lee, Shanice says carefully, may I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you think Junho will ever forgive himself for what happened to his wife? Young-suk is quiet for several moments, studying her granddaughter's sleeping face, as if searching for answers in the child's peaceful expression. In Korea, we believe that guilt is like water. It finds the lowest places in the heart and settles there until something forces it to move again. And what forces it to move? Love, hope. The recognition that life continues to offer possibilities even after loss. Young-suk looks directly at Shanice. or the realization that holding on to guilt becomes a way of dishonoring the person we're grieving. Before Shanice can respond, Minjun stirs, her eyes opening to focus immediately on the adults beside her bed. "Dr. Lady," she whispers in sleepy English, "you came back." "I always come back to check on my favorite patient," Shanice responds, settling into the chair beside the bed. "How are you feeling, sweetheart?" "My heart feels big, like it has room for more feelings than before." Minjun's limited vocabulary struggles to express something profound about her physical recovery. "Appa says the sadness doesn't have to live in my heart anymore because you fixed the broken places." The innocence of the child's words hits both women with unexpected emotional force. Young-suk's eyes fill with tears, while Shanice feels her professional composure threatening to dissolve completely. "Your Appa is a very smart man," Shanice manages. "He likes you," Minjun announces with the casual directness of children who haven't learned to hide difficult truths. "He smiles different when you're here, like the way he smiled in the pictures with Mommy." Young-suk and Shanice exchange glances over the child's head, both recognizing that Minjun has articulated something the adults have been avoiding discussing directly. "Minjuna," Young-suk says gently in Korean. "What do you think of Dr. Shanice?" The child considers the question with the seriousness she applies to all important matters. "I think she has the same kind of hands as Mommy. Gentle hands that make hurt things better." She reaches toward Shanice, who takes her small fingers carefully. "And I think Appa needs someone with gentle hands to make his hurt things better too." The wisdom of children often cuts through adult complications with devastating clarity. Minjun, at 15 months old, has identified the core truth that everyone else has been dancing around. That Junho's emotional wounds need healing as much as her heart defected. "What would you think?" Young-suk asks carefully, "if Appa found someone special to care about? Someone who might become part of our family?" Minjun doesn't hesitate. "I would think Appa deserves to be happy. And I would think our family has room for more love." As if summoned by his daughter's words, Junho appears in the doorway carrying coffee and the expression of someone who's been walking hospital corridors for hours, thinking about impossible situations. His eyes immediately seek Shanice, and something passes between them. Recognition of the conversation that happened in the elevator, acknowledgement of feelings that can't be easily dismissed. "How's my brave girl?" he asks in English, moving to kiss Minjun's forehead. "Better, and hungry. Can I have ice cream for breakfast tomorrow?" The request makes all three adults smile, a moment of normal family negotiation that feels precious after days of medical crisis. But as Junho settles into the visitor's chair, and Young-suk excuses herself to make phone calls to Seoul, Shanice realizes that she and the man she's fallen in love with are alone together for the first time since their elevator confession. "She looks so much better," he observes, his voice carrying wonder at his daughter's transformation. Children are remarkably resilient. Their hearts heal faster than adults, physically and emotionally. And what about adult hearts? The question is quiet, loaded with meaning that extends far beyond cardiac medicine. Shanice looks at Minjun, who has drifted back to sleep with the easy security of children who know they're completely safe. Adult hearts are more complicated. They carry more history, more fear, more reasons to protect themselves from potential pain. But they can heal? With the right conditions, the right care, the right reasons to believe that taking risks might be worth it. They sit in comfortable silence, watching Minjun sleep, and listening to the quiet symphony of hospital night sounds. In this moment, surrounded by monitors and medical equipment that have kept a child alive, they both understand that some kinds of healing require more than surgery and medication. "Shanice," Junho says finally, "I need to tell you something about my wife's death." His voice carries a weight that suggests this is information he's never shared before, secrets that have been eating away at his sense of self-worth for 3 years. You don't have to. I do. Because if we're going to move forward, if there's any possibility of an us, you need to know who you're choosing to care about. He takes a deep breath, gathering courage to speak truths he's been avoiding even in his own mind. So Young didn't just die from complications during surgery. She died because I pushed her to have the appendectomy at a specific hospital, on a specific day, with a specific surgeon who I thought would give us the best outcome. The confession begins to pour out with the desperate urgency of someone who's been carrying poison for too long. She wanted to wait, wanted to get a second opinion, wanted to research other options. But I was convinced that speed and reputation mattered more than her instincts. I scheduled the surgery, chose the medical team, made all the decisions because I thought my business judgment applied to medical choices. Tears are flowing down his face now. Years of suppressed guilt finally finding expression. The surgeon I chose was technically excellent but emotionally detached. He treated So Young like a problem to be solved rather than a person to be cared for. When the allergic reaction started, he was so focused on protocol that he missed the warning signs until it was too late. Shanice feels her heart breaking for this man who's been torturing himself with impossible questions of causation and responsibility. Junho, you couldn't have known. But I should have listened to her. I should have valued her feelings over my research. I should have chosen care over credentials. He looks directly at Shanice, his eyes red with exhaustion and emotion. And now, I find myself falling in love with someone who represents everything I've learned about what good medicine really means. Someone who combines technical skill with genuine compassion. Someone who treats patients like they're precious. Someone who makes me believe that maybe I can trust my instincts about people again. The room falls quiet, except for the steady rhythm of Minjun's breathing and the soft beeping of monitors that confirm she's healing beautifully. In this space between confession and forgiveness, Shanice understands that Junho isn't just processing grief. He's learning to separate love from control, care from management, the desire to protect from the need to make all the decisions. The question is, he whispers, whether loving you honors So Young's memory or betrays it, and whether I have the right to find out. The morning of Minjun's discharge brings the controlled chaos that accompanies any significant transition in pediatric medicine. Medications must be organized, follow-up appointments scheduled, and discharge instructions carefully reviewed with family members who will be responsible for ongoing care at home. Shanice moves through these familiar routines with practiced efficiency, but her attention keeps drifting to the emotional undercurrents that make this particular discharge unlike any other in her medical career. Minjun sits cross-legged on her hospital bed, wearing the small handbook that Young-suk brought from Seoul, her dark hair brushed until it shines like silk. She looks like a completely different child from the pale, struggling patient who arrived at Presbyterian Hospital weeks ago. Healthy color in her cheeks, easy breathing, and the bright alertness of someone whose heart is finally providing adequate oxygen to her developing brain. "Dr. Lady, will you visit me at our new house?" she asks in careful English, her small hands clutching the pink teddy bear that has become her constant companion. Shanice glances toward Junho, who's reviewing discharge paperwork with the concentrated attention of someone trying to manage multiple complex situations simultaneously. Since his late-night confession about So Young's death, they've maintained professional courtesy that barely conceals the emotional intensity building between them. "I'll need to see you for follow-up appointments," Shanice replies diplomatically, "to make sure your heart stays strong and healthy." "But will you visit? Like family visits?" The question hangs in the air with the particular weight that children's innocent directness brings to adult complications. Young-suk, who has been folding Minjun's belongings with military precision, pauses in her activity to watch Shanice's response. Before anyone can answer, Secretary Park appears in the doorway with the efficient urgency that characterizes all his interactions. "Mr. Lee, the car is waiting downstairs, and there's been a development with the media situation." Junho looks up from the discharge forms, his expression immediately shifting into the alert concern of someone accustomed to managing public relations crises. What kind of development? Photos, sir, of you and Dr. Howard. Someone with a telephoto lens captured images of your conversation in the hospital garden yesterday evening. The Korean media is speculating about the nature of your relationship. The room's temperature seems to drop several degrees as everyone processes the implications. Shanice remembers the conversation Park is referencing, a moment when she and Junho stepped outside for fresh air and found themselves talking about Minjun's progress, about their respective backgrounds, about the growing connection they've been trying to define or deny. What kind of speculation? Young-suk's voice carries the sharp edge of someone who understands exactly how Korean media treats wealthy families' personal lives. Park glances at his tablet, his expression diplomatically neutral. Headlines suggesting that CEO Lee Jun-ho has found comfort with his daughter's American doctor. Photos showing intimate conversation and what appears to be personal closeness. Shanice feels her stomach drop as she realizes that their private moments have been transformed into public entertainment. In the photos, their conversation probably looks much more romantic than it felt at the time. Two people standing close together, obvious concern and care on their faces. The kind of body language that suggests relationship rather than professional consultation. Let me see, Junho demands, and Park reluctantly hands over the tablet. The photos are exactly as invasive as Shanice feared. Telephoto shots that capture moments of connection while stripping away the medical context that makes their relationship appropriate. In one image, Junho's hand appears to be touching her shoulder in what looks like a casual gesture of intimacy. In another, they're both laughing at something, their faces animated with genuine joy. "Oh," Young-suk says quietly, and her tone suggests she's seeing something in the photos that challenges her assumptions about her son's emotional state. "What are they saying exactly?" Shanice asks, though she's not sure she wants to know. Park consults his tablet with obvious reluctance. The headlines translate roughly to "Widowed CEO finds new love in hospital," and "Korean millionaire's daughter brings father and doctor together," and several others that are more invasive regarding your personal background, Dr. Howard. The violation feels physical, the reduction of genuine emotion and professional dedication to tabloid entertainment. Shanice has dealt with media attention before, usually related to successful surgeries or medical research, but never this kind of personal speculation that turns private feelings into public judgment. "We need damage control," Young-suk announces with the decisive authority of someone accustomed to managing family reputation. Immediate statements clarifying the professional nature of the relationship, perhaps a transfer of Minjun's ongoing care to another physician. "No." The word comes from Minjun herself, spoken with the firm determination that toddlers use when adults are making decisions that threaten their sense of security. "Dr. Lady stays. She's my heart doctor." All the adults turn toward the small voice that has cut through their crisis management discussion. Minjun sits on her hospital bed like a tiny queen defending her kingdom, her expression serious but unafraid. "Minjuna," Young-suk says gently in Korean. "Sometimes grown-ups need to make difficult choices to protect people we love. But I love Dr. Lady, and Appa loves Dr. Lady, and Dr. Lady loves us." The child's logic is unassailable in its simplicity. Why would we protect people by making them sad? From the mouths of babes, Minjun has articulated the fundamental question that all their adult complications have been avoiding. Why should love be treated as something dangerous that requires protection, rather than something precious that deserves nurturing? Junho looks at the photos again, but this time Shanice sees something different in his expression. Not shame or concern about public perception, but recognition of emotional truth. "You know what I see in these pictures?" he says quietly. "I see a man who's remembering how to be happy. I see a woman who cares about my daughter like she's family. I see two people who found something worth protecting. He hands the tablet back to Park, with the decisive gesture of someone who's made a choice. We're not issuing any denials or clarifications. We're not transferring Minjun's care to another doctor. We're not managing this like a crisis because it's not a crisis. It's life. Young-suk stares at her son as if seeing him clearly for the first time in years. Junho, the media attention, the speculation about your personal life, will pass. Media attention always does. But if I let fear of public opinion dictate my personal choices, I'll be making the same mistake I made with So Young, prioritizing other people's expectations over my own family's happiness. He turns toward Shanice, his expression open and vulnerable in a way that makes her heart race. Dr. Howard, Shanice, I'm not asking you to navigate Korean media or deal with public speculation about our relationship. I'm asking you to have dinner with me tomorrow night. As two people who care about each other and want to see where that caring might lead. The invitation is simple, direct, and terrifying in its implications. Accepting means crossing the line from professional relationship to personal involvement, from careful boundaries to emotional risk. Declining means preserving her career safety at the cost of something that might be extraordinary. Minjun watches this adult drama with the absorbed attention of someone witnessing something important, even if she doesn't fully understand the stakes involved. Yes, Shanice says quietly, and the word feels like jumping off a cliff towards something that might be flying. But as they prepare to leave the hospital where they met, none of them realizes that the real test of their improbable family isn't media attention or cultural complications. It's the secret that Young-suk has been carrying since the day So Young died. A truth that could either heal Junho's guilt or destroy his newfound hope entirely. The Korean Cultural Center in Manhattan transforms into an elegant battlefield as Young-suk hosts what she calls a clarification dinner for select members of the Korean American business community and several carefully chosen journalists. The event, ostensibly a celebration of Minjun's successful surgery, actually serves as a strategic intervention in the media narrative that has been growing around Junho's personal life. Shanice arrives at the appointed time, wearing her best professional dress and carrying the particular kind of nervous energy that comes from knowing you're about to be evaluated by people whose approval carries significant weight in someone else's life. The elegant venue, with its traditional Korean decor and formal dining arrangements, feels like stepping into a world where cultural expectations carry more weight than American informality. Dr. Howard, Young-suk greets her with perfect hostess courtesy. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I've invited several people who are eager to meet the wonderful doctor who saved Minjun's life. The introduction is gracious and appropriate, but Shanice recognizes the careful orchestration behind it. This dinner isn't just social. It's Young-suk's attempt to present their family situation in terms that will satisfy both Korean cultural expectations and American professional standards. Junho appears beside his mother, wearing a dark suit that emphasizes his role as successful businessman rather than devoted father. His greeting is formally polite, but Shanice catches the warmth in his eyes that suggests their private relationship continues to develop beneath the public performance. Shanice, I'd like you to meet Dr. Kim Sang-woo from Columbia University's medical school, Junho says, introducing her to a distinguished older man who carries himself with the particular authority of someone accustomed to being the most accomplished person in any room. Dr. Howard, Dr. Kim says in perfect English, his handshake firm and assessing. I've heard remarkable things about your surgical work with complex pediatric cases. Minjun's recovery has been truly impressive. Thank you, Dr. Kim. Minjun is an extraordinary child with remarkable resilience. And her father is equally remarkable in his dedication to her care, Dr. Kim observes, his tone carrying undertones that suggest he's been briefed on the media speculation surrounding their relationship. It's wonderful when patients' families develop such appreciation for their medical teams. The word appreciation hangs in the air like a diplomatic euphemism. Shanice realizes that everyone at this dinner knows about the rumors, the photographs, and the speculation about her relationship with Jun-ho. The question is whether the evening will serve to legitimize their connection or create pressure to minimize it. As they move through cocktails and formal dinner conversation, Shanice finds herself navigating cultural currents she's never encountered before. Korean business etiquette, respectful interaction with elders, the subtle hierarchies that govern social interaction within immigrant communities. All of it requires careful attention to protocols she's learning in real time. Dr. Howard, says Mrs. Park, an influential member of the Korean American cultural community, it must be very rewarding to work with international families and learn about different approaches to family care. It's been one of the most meaningful experiences of my medical career, Shanice responds honestly. Min-jun and her family have taught me a great deal about the importance of treating patients within their cultural context. And presumably they've learned about American medical approaches as well. Mrs. Park continues with the particular tone of someone probing for information. The integration of different cultural perspectives must create interesting dynamics. Shanice recognizes the fishing expedition beneath the polite conversation. These people are trying to determine whether her relationship with the Lee family represents professional cultural exchange or something more personal that might violate expected boundaries. Across the table, Min-jun sits in a custom high chair, wearing a child-sized hanbok and chattering happily in a mixture of Korean and English that delights the other dinner guests. Her obvious health and joy serve as living testimony to Shanice's medical competence, making it difficult for anyone to question the value of her involvement with the family. Halmoni, Min-jun announces in Korean, then switches to English for the benefit of the other guests. Dr. Lady makes my heart strong like Appa's heart. The innocent declaration creates a moment of charged silence as everyone processes the child's words. Has she just compared Shanice to her deceased mother? Or is she simply expressing gratitude in the uncomplicated language that children use for important relationships? Young-suk recovers first, her hostess training allowing her to navigate the potential awkwardness. Min-jun loves all her doctors very much. Dr. Howard has been exceptionally caring throughout her treatment. But the moment has shifted the evening's dynamic. Everyone present now understands that Min-jun herself sees Shanice as more than a medical provider. She sees her as someone with emotional significance in the family structure. During dessert, Dr. Kim approaches Shanice for what appears to be private conversation. Dr. Howard, I hope you don't mind me speaking directly, but I'm curious about your long-term plans regarding the Lee family's care. I'll continue to monitor Min-jun's cardiac health as long as she remains in New York, Shanice replies carefully. And if the family were to return to Korea, would you consider consultation arrangements that might allow for continued involvement in her care? The question suggests possibilities Shanice hadn't considered. Professional relationships that might bridge geographic and cultural distances, ways to maintain medical responsibility that could also preserve personal connections. I would certainly be open to consultation arrangements that serve Min-jun's best medical interests, she answers diplomatically. Excellent, because I suspect that might become relevant sooner than you expect. Before Shanice can ask what he means, the dinner conversation is interrupted by the arrival of Secretary Park, who approaches Jun-ho with obvious urgency and whispers something in Korean that makes his expression change dramatically. Ladies and gentlemen, Jun-ho announces, standing to address the dinner party. I need to step away briefly to handle a business matter. Please continue enjoying your evening. But as he heads toward the private office area with Park and his phone, Shanice catches fragments of conversation that suggest this isn't routine business. It's something related to the media attention surrounding their relationship, and it's serious enough to interrupt a carefully orchestrated social evening. Young-suk excuses herself moments later, following her son with the particular urgency of someone managing a family crisis. Through the partially open office door, Shanice can hear raised voices speaking rapid Korean, the kind of intense conversation that suggests significant problems requiring immediate attention. "Dr. Howard," Dr. Kim says quietly, "I think you should know that Korean media can be persistent when they identify stories that capture public interest, particularly stories involving wealthy families and questions of cultural integration." The warning is diplomatically phrased, but its meaning is clear. The media attention is about to intensify, and Shanice needs to prepare herself for scrutiny that will extend far beyond professional evaluation of her medical competence. As the elegant dinner party continues around her, Shanice realizes that loving Junho and Min-jun means accepting that their relationship will be evaluated not just by hospital ethics committees and professional colleagues, but by an entire cultural community that has its own expectations about appropriate relationships and family loyalty. The hospital's rooftop garden offers a sanctuary above the city's chaos, a place where medical professionals come to process difficult cases and find perspective among carefully tended plants that somehow thrive despite the urban environment. Shanice discovers Junho here at nearly midnight, standing at the railing and staring out at Manhattan's glittering skyline with the expression of someone wrestling with impossible decisions. "The dinner party ended rather abruptly," she observes, joining him at the railing while maintaining careful distance. The October air carries autumn's bite, and she pulls her jacket tighter against the chill. "Korean media has decided that our relationship is a national interest story," Junho replies without looking away from the city lights. Apparently, the successful Korean CEO choosing an American doctor over potential Korean matches represents some kind of cultural betrayal that deserves extensive coverage. The bitterness in his voice reveals the weight of pressure he's been carrying since the photographs appeared. Shanice realizes that what feels like personal attack to her represents something even more complex for him. Questions about cultural loyalty, family obligation, and the responsibility of public figures to uphold traditional expectations. "Your mother must be concerned about the impact on your business interests." "My mother is concerned about everything." The media coverage, the potential effect on Lee Industries' reputation in Korea, the cultural implications of a Korean chaebol family integrating with American professional circles. He finally turns to look at her, and his expression carries exhaustion that goes beyond simple fatigue. "But mostly she's concerned about whether I'm making decisions based on genuine feelings or emotional reaction to trauma." The admission opens a window into family dynamics that Shanice has only glimpsed before. Young-suk's protective instincts aren't just about cultural expectations. They're about a mother's concern that her son might be using new relationships to avoid processing his grief, rather than genuinely healing from it. And what do you think? Are you reacting to trauma or responding to genuine feelings? Junho considers the question with the careful attention it deserves. 3 years ago, I thought I knew the difference between love and need, between healing and replacement, between honoring my wife's memory and being trapped by it. Now I realize I don't know anything except that Min-jun is healthier and happier than she's been since her mother died, and that's directly related to your presence in our lives. He moves closer, and Shanice can see the conflict in his expression. Desire warring with duty, hope struggling against fear of making another mistake that could hurt the people he loves most. But it's not just about Min-jun anymore. He continues quietly. "When I see you with her, when I watch you bring joy back into her world, I remember what it feels like to hope for more than just surviving each day. I remember that life is supposed to include possibilities for happiness." The city spreads below them like a constellation of individual stories, millions of people navigating their own complicated relationships between love and responsibility, personal desires and cultural expectations. In this rooftop sanctuary above the urban chaos, Shanice feels the weight of choosing between safety and risk, professional boundaries and personal truth. "Junho," she says carefully, "I need to tell you something about my own family, my own cultural background. my own reasons for understanding what it means to love across differences. She takes a deep breath, gathering courage to share stories she rarely tells, even to close friends. My parents are both doctors. My father is a cardiac surgeon. My mother is a pediatrician. They met during residency and built a life around shared professional values and similar backgrounds. Very appropriate, very safe, very predictable. And they never understood why I chose pediatric cardiology over more prestigious specializations, why I spend extra time with families instead of focusing purely on medical procedures, why I get emotionally invested in cases that other doctors handle with professional detachment. Her voice carries old pain, the ache of feeling misunderstood by people who should know her best. When Keisha died, they thought I should move on, specialize in something less emotionally challenging, protect myself from the kind of grief that comes from losing young patients. Junho listens with the focused attention of someone who understands family pressure and cultural expectations that don't always align with personal truth. But losing Keisha taught me that emotional investment isn't a weakness. It's what makes good medicine great. It's what allowed me to see Minjun's condition clearly, when other doctors focused only on her symptoms. It's what gave me the courage to perform surgery that others considered too risky. She looks directly at him. And it's what makes me believe that love is worth fighting for, even when it's complicated by cultural differences and professional obligations. They stand close enough now that she can feel the warmth of his body despite the cool night air. The space between them feels charged with possibility and promise, with the recognition of two people who understand each other's wounds and strengths. Shanice, he whispers, and her name on his lips sounds like prayer and promise combined. This is the moment where we decide, she whispers back, where we choose between the safety of appropriate boundaries and the risk of something that might be extraordinary. Instead of answering with words, Junho reaches toward her face, his fingers gentle against her cheek as he traces the line of her jaw with the reverent touch of someone who's forgotten how beautiful connection can be. His eyes search hers, looking for permission, for certainty, for the courage to cross lines that can't be uncrossed. I love you, he says quietly, the words falling between them like a bridge across all the complications that have brought them to this moment. I love your gentleness with Minjun, your courage in the operating room, your willingness to fight for what you believe in. I love the way you make me remember that life includes possibilities I'd stopped letting myself imagine. I love you too, she replies, and the confession feels like stepping off a cliff toward something that might be flying. I love your devotion to Minjun, your integrity in impossible situations, your willingness to choose what's right over what's easy. When he finally kisses her, it's with the careful reverence of someone who understands that this moment changes everything. Her hands find the fabric of his jacket as she kisses him back, pouring 3 months of suppressed longing and denied connection into this first acknowledgement of the love that's been growing between them since the night they met in the emergency room. The city continues its restless rhythm below them. But on this rooftop sanctuary, two people finally stop fighting their feelings and embrace the possibility of building something beautiful together. But love confessed under autumn stars still has to survive in the harsh light of media attention, family expectations, and professional responsibilities that will test every promise they've made to each other and to the child who brought them together. Young-suk moves to sit across from Shanice with deliberate precision, her hands folded in her lap like someone preparing for a difficult negotiation. Dr. Howard, I've been waiting 3 years for the right moment to tell my son the complete truth about his wife's death. I thought that moment might be when he was ready to love again, when he had something hopeful to balance the pain of understanding what really happened. The calculation in Young-suk's approach reveals the depth of her protective instincts and the complexity of managing family trauma across cultural and generational lines. Shanice realizes she's being positioned as both potential catalyst for healing and potential collateral damage if the truth proves too devastating for Junho to process. But there's more to consider, Young-suk continues, her voice dropping to the confidential tone reserved for the most sensitive family matters. So Young left letters. For Junho, for Minjun when she's older, for me. In her letter to Junho, she explains her decision to delay telling him about the cancer diagnosis. She also explains her feelings about his potential future relationships. Shanice feels her heart rate increase as she realizes this conversation is about to become even more complicated. What did she say about future relationships? That she hoped he would find love again. That she hoped he would choose someone who would love Minjun like her own daughter. That she hoped he would choose someone who understood that medicine is both science and heart, both skill and compassion. Young-suk looks directly at Shanice. Reading her letter, I realized she might have been describing you before you ever met. The revelation creates a strange sense of connection across time and death. The feeling that So Young somehow anticipated the person who would help heal her family, even as she was losing her own battle with illness. Shanice feels honored and terrified by the possibility that she might be fulfilling a dying woman's hopes for her husband and daughter. Mrs. Lee, why are you telling me this now? Because Junho is planning to ask you to marry him. The words hit like lightning, sudden and illuminating, and completely unexpected. Shanice has been processing the development of their relationship day by day, learning to navigate the growing intimacy and professional complications. The possibility of marriage, with all its cultural, legal, and emotional implications, hasn't been part of her conscious planning. How do you know? Because he asked for his grandmother's engagement ring. The ring that's been in our family for 4 generations. The ring that represents commitment not just between 2 people, but between their families and cultures. Young-suk's expression softens slightly. And because he asked for my blessing, which he wouldn't have done unless he was absolutely certain of his feelings and his intentions. Shanice feels the world shifting beneath her, the casual progression of their relationship suddenly accelerating into life-changing territory. Marriage to Junho would mean becoming Minjun's mother, joining a Korean family with traditions and expectations she's only beginning to understand, navigating media attention and cultural scrutiny that will follow them for years. Did you give him your blessing? I told him that my blessing depends on whether you understand what you're choosing. Whether you're prepared for the reality of loving a Korean man who carries 3 years of unresolved guilt, raising a Korean daughter who will grow up between 2 cultures, managing a relationship that will be evaluated by Korean media and American colleagues, and everyone who has opinions about cross-cultural families. The list of challenges feels overwhelming when presented so directly. Shanice has been focused on the emotional connection between herself, Junho, and Minjun. But Young-suk is forcing her to consider the broader implications of choosing this particular love story. And whether I'm prepared for him to learn the truth about his wife's death. That most of all. Young-suk reaches into her purse and withdraws an envelope, sealed but obviously old, with Korean characters written in feminine handwriting across the front. This is So Young's letter to Junho. When he reads it, he'll understand that his guilt has been based on incomplete information. But he'll also understand that his wife felt she had to protect him from her terminal diagnosis instead of trusting him to support her through treatment. She hands the letter to Shanice, who takes it with the reverent care reserved for objects that carry enormous emotional weight. The question, Young-suk continues, is whether learning this truth will free him from guilt or create new forms of pain. Whether understanding So Young's protective instincts will help him trust his judgment or make him question everything he believed about their marriage. Shanice stares at the letter, understanding that it represents either the key to Junho's healing or the potential destruction of the emotional progress he's made over the past 3 years. The weight of holding this information feels enormous, the power to change someone's understanding of their entire life story. Mrs. Lee, This decision should be made by family members who've known Junho his entire life, not by someone who's been part of your lives for 3 months. But you're not just someone who's been part of our lives for 3 months. You're the woman my son loves, the woman he wants to marry, the woman who will help shape Minjun's future. Young-suk's voice carries absolute certainty. And more than that, you're a doctor who understands that healing sometimes requires confronting painful truths instead of managing comfortable lies. Before Shanice can respond, her pager buzzes with an emergency notification from the hospital. As she checks the message, her heart sinks. Minjun has been brought to the emergency room with cardiac distress, her newly repaired heart showing signs of complications that require immediate medical attention. Mrs. Lee, we need to get to the hospital now. Minjun is having problems. Young-suk's carefully maintained composure cracks as maternal instincts override diplomatic maneuvering. They leave the hotel suite immediately, carrying with them So-young's unopened letter and the weight of decisions that will have to wait until they know whether the child who brought them all together is going to be okay. The pediatric emergency room erupts in controlled chaos as Shanice arrives to find Minjun unconscious on a gurney, surrounded by medical equipment and the familiar urgency of cardiac crisis management. Junho stands pressed against the wall, his face white with terror as he watches his daughter fight the same battle they thought had been won weeks ago. "What happened?" Shanice demands, immediately taking charge of the situation with the authority that comes from being both Minjun's primary cardiologist and the person who knows her medical history better than anyone else in the building. "Sudden onset cardiac arrhythmia, Dr. Martinez reports, her professional demeanor hiding whatever personal satisfaction she might feel at being proven right about the risks of experimental surgical techniques. Heart rate spiked to dangerous levels, then dropped precipitously. We've stabilized her for now, but the rhythm disturbances suggest possible complications from the previous repair." Shanice moves to Minjun's bedside, her trained eyes quickly assessing the child's condition, while her heart breaks at seeing this small patient back in crisis. Minjun's color is dusky again, her breathing labored despite oxygen support, her small body fighting the same cardiac insufficiency that nearly killed her before surgery. "Have you checked for medication interactions? Dietary changes? Any recent illness or stress that might have triggered?" "Dr. Howard, Dr." Martinez interrupts with the tone of someone asserting authority. Given the severity of Minjun's current condition and the questions about the long-term stability of your surgical repair, Dr. Richardson and I believe it's time to consider more aggressive interventions. The implication hangs in the air like a threat. Martinez is suggesting that Shanice's experimental valve repair has failed, that Minjun needs additional surgery to correct problems created by inadequate initial treatment. "What kind of aggressive interventions?" "Complete valve replacement. Traditional surgical approach with proven long-term outcomes. Dr. Richardson is preparing to scrub in as primary surgeon." Shanice feels the professional ground shifting beneath her as she realizes that Minjun's crisis is being used to question her surgical competence and remove her from the case. The child she's fought to save is becoming the weapon used to destroy her medical authority. "Dr. Martinez, Minjun is my patient. I performed her initial surgery, I understand her individual cardiac anatomy, and I should be the one evaluating treatment options for this crisis. Dr. Howard, your emotional involvement with this family has compromised your medical judgment from the beginning. The hospital administration agrees that a fresh perspective is required for Minjun's ongoing care." The words land like physical blows. Shanice realizes that the media attention, the speculation about her relationship with Junho, and the cultural complications surrounding their family have been twisted into evidence of unprofessional conduct that disqualifies her from treating the patient she's most qualified to help. From across the room, Junho's voice cuts through the medical politics with desperate authority. "Dr. Howard stays with Minjun. She's the only doctor who successfully treated my daughter's condition. She's the only one I trust with her life. "Mr. Lee," Dr. Martinez responds with diplomatic firmness. "Your personal feelings about Dr. Howard are understandable, but medical decisions should be based on clinical judgment rather than emotional attachment. My daughter's heart works for the first time in her life because of Dr. Howard's clinical judgment. My personal feelings are based on her medical competence, not the other way around." Before the argument can escalate further, Minjun's monitors begin shrieking urgent warnings. Her heart rhythm spikes into dangerous territory. Her blood pressure drops, and suddenly the emergency room transforms into the controlled chaos of a child fighting for her life. "She's going into cardiac arrest," Shanice announces, immediately moving to begin CPR while nurses prepare emergency medications. "I need defibrillation pads and cardiac stimulants, and I need Dr. Martinez to call the surgical team because Minjun is going back to surgery now. Dr. Howard. Now, Dr. Martinez." Shanice's voice carries absolute authority as she works to restart Minjun's heart. "Argue with me later. Save her life now." For the next 20 minutes, the emergency room becomes a battlefield where death and medical intervention fight for control of one child's future. Shanice works with the desperate precision of someone who refuses to lose a patient to politics or professional jealousy. Her hands steady as she performs procedures that could either save Minjun's life or end her own medical career. As Minjun's heart rhythm finally stabilizes enough for transport to surgery, Shanice looks up to find Junho and Youngsuk standing together, united in their terror and their absolute faith in her ability to save their granddaughter and daughter. "The surgical repair is holding," she announces, exhaustion and relief making her voice hoarse. "This crisis was caused by medication interaction, not surgical failure. Minjun had an allergic reaction to one of her prescriptions that triggered the cardiac distress. The revelation vindicates her surgical technique, while revealing that the crisis could have been prevented with more careful medication management. Dr. Martinez's expression shifts as she realizes that her attack on Shanice's competence has been undermined by evidence that the emergency was caused by factors unrelated to the original surgery. "How did you know it was medication interaction?" Youngsuk asks. "Because I know Minjun. I know her individual response patterns, her medical history, her baseline cardiac function. I know her well enough to recognize when something external is affecting her heart rather than something structural." Shanice looks directly at Dr. Martinez. "That's what emotional involvement actually creates. Deeper understanding of individual patients rather than generic application of standard protocols." As Minjun is wheeled to the ICU for monitoring, Shanice realizes that this crisis has forced a confrontation that was inevitable from the beginning. Her relationship with the Lee family, her surgical methods, her emotional investment in patient care, all of it has been tested under the most extreme circumstances possible. And in passing that test, she's proven that love and medicine aren't contradictory forces. They're complementary aspects of healing that work best when they support rather than undermine each other. The ICU corridor at 4 a.m. feels like a liminal space between night and dawn, between crisis and recovery, between the professional boundaries Shanice has maintained for years and the personal commitments that are reshaping her entire understanding of what it means to be a doctor. Minjun sleeps peacefully in her room, her heart rhythm steady and strong after 12 hours of careful monitoring, while Junho maintains his familiar vigil beside her bed. Shanice finds herself unable to return home, unable to leave the hospital, unable to process the evening's events without the grounding presence of the child who has become the center of her world. She sits in the family lounge, staring at So Young's unopened letter and trying to decide whether she has the right to carry information that could transform Junho's understanding of his marriage and his guilt. "Dr. Howard?" The voice belongs to Dr. Richardson, who appears in the doorway with the particular expression he reserves for serious conversations about difficult medical and ethical situations. "Dr. Richardson, I thought you'd gone home." Hard to go home when one of my best surgeons just saved a child's life, while simultaneously proving that emotional investment in patients can enhance rather than compromise medical judgment. He settles into the chair across from her, with the careful movements of someone who's spent too many long nights in hospital lounges. That was impressive work tonight, Shanice. Both the emergency cardiac management and the diplomatic handling of a colleague who was clearly gunning for your position. Dr. Martinez was concerned about Minjun's welfare. Dr. Martinez was concerned about your success rate and your growing reputation for handling complex cases that other doctors avoid. Richardson's voice carries the particular authority of someone who's navigated hospital politics for decades. But that's not why I'm here. Shanice waits, understanding that Richardson has something specific to discuss, something that probably relates to the administrative fallout from tonight's emergency and the ongoing questions about her professional conduct. The hospital board met in emergency session tonight. They reviewed the events surrounding Minjun's crisis, Dr. Martinez's handling of the emergency response and your clinical decision-making under extreme pressure. He pauses, and Shanice realizes her entire career might be hanging on whatever he says next. They were unanimously impressed with your performance. Relief floods through her so powerfully that she feels momentarily dizzy. And Dr. Martinez? Dr. Martinez has been counseled about the importance of supporting colleagues during medical emergencies rather than using patient crises to advance personal agendas. Richardson's expression suggests that the counseling session was not particularly pleasant for Elena. She's also been reminded that questioning a colleague's competence requires evidence beyond speculation about their personal relationships. The vindication feels significant, but Shanice realizes it doesn't resolve the fundamental tensions between her growing love for the Lee family and the professional expectations that govern her medical practice. Dr. Richardson, I need to ask you something about medical ethics and personal relationships. Ask away. If a doctor falls in love with a patient's family member, and that love enhances rather than compromises their medical judgment, is it still considered unethical? Richardson considers the question with the careful attention it deserves. Medical ethics are designed to protect patients from exploitation and ensure that clinical decisions are based on medical rather than personal considerations. If personal feelings enhance a doctor's understanding of their patient and improve medical outcomes, then the ethical question becomes more complex. More complex how? The question isn't whether personal involvement exists, it's whether that involvement serves the patient's best interests. He looks directly at her. Shanice, your emotional investment in Minjun has made you a better doctor and has directly contributed to saving her life multiple times. Your growing relationship with her father appears to be based on mutual respect and shared commitment to her welfare. He stands, preparing to leave, but clearly wanting to finish this conversation with something definitive. From a medical ethics standpoint, I see no reason why your personal relationship should prevent you from continuing to provide excellent care to Minjun. From a practical standpoint, you're probably going to face continued scrutiny from people who think cross-cultural relationships are inherently problematic. As Richardson disappears down the corridor, Shanice realizes that she's been granted professional permission to pursue the relationship that has been growing between herself and Junho. The medical ethics aren't the problem. The cultural complications, media attention, and personal fears are what make this situation feel impossible to navigate. She looks again at So Young's letter. This envelope that contains information that could either heal Junho's guilt or create new forms of pain. The weight of carrying this secret feels enormous, the responsibility of deciding when and how to share it, almost overwhelming. Her phone buzzes with a text message from Junho. Minjun is asking for you. She says her heart feels lonely without her doctor lady. The message makes her smile despite the exhaustion and emotional complexity of the evening. Whatever else is complicated about this situation, Minjun's needs are clear and immediate. She wants the people she loves to be close to her, to help her feel safe and cared for during her recovery. Shanice makes her decision. She tucks So Young's letter into her jacket pocket and heads toward Minjun's room, toward the family that has become more important to her than professional safety or cultural comfort. Whatever truth the letter contains, whatever challenges their relationship will face, whatever obstacles lie ahead, they can be handled together as a family that chooses love over fear. But as she walks down the corridor toward the room where Minjun waits, Shanice doesn't realize that Junho has been carrying his own secret, a decision about their future that will either heal old wounds or create new ones, depending on whether she's ready to say yes to forever. Dawn breaks over Manhattan as Minjun prepares for what everyone hopes will be her final cardiac procedure, a minor adjustment to the valve repair that will ensure optimal heart function as she grows. The surgery is planned as outpatient, routine follow-up to the complex initial repair, but the emotional weight feels enormous because it represents either complete resolution of her medical crisis or evidence that her heart problems are more intractable than anyone hoped. Shanice reviews the surgical plan one final time, her hands steady despite the lack of sleep and the emotional intensity of the past 24 hours. Minjun's cardiac anatomy has become as familiar to her as her own heartbeat, but each procedure still requires careful attention to detail and absolute precision. "Doctor lady," Minjun says from her preoperative bed, wearing the small surgical gown that makes her look even tinier than usual. "After you fix my heart this time, will it stay fixed forever?" The question carries the weight of a child's hope and a family's desperate need for certainty in an uncertain world. Shanice sits on the edge of the bed, her professional demeanor softening into the gentle warmth she reserves for her smallest patients. "Sweetheart, your heart is going to work beautifully for your whole long life. This little surgery today will make sure everything stays perfect as you grow up. And you'll still be my doctor when I'm big?" The innocence of the question masks the complexity of what Minjun is really asking: whether Shanice will remain part of their family permanently, whether the love that has grown between the adults will translate into lifelong commitment, whether the healing that began with cardiac surgery will continue with emotional healing for everyone involved. "I'll always be here when you need me," Shanice promises, and she means it with every fiber of her professional and personal being. Junho appears in the doorway, carrying coffee and the expression of someone who's made a decision that will change everything. His eyes meet Shanice's across Minjun's bed, and she sees something there that makes her heart rate increase. Not anxiety or fear, but the particular intensity of someone who's about to take an enormous risk. "The surgical team is ready," he announces, but his voice carries undertones that suggest he's talking about more than just medical procedures. As Minjun is wheeled toward the operating room, Shanice follows with the familiar pre-surgical focus that allows her to compartmentalize personal emotions and concentrate entirely on medical requirements. But as she scrubs in, she can't shake the feeling that this surgery represents more than just cardiac repair. It's a culmination of all the healing that has happened over the past 3 months, both medical and emotional. The procedure itself proceeds with textbook precision. Minjun's heart responds beautifully to the minor adjustments, her valve function optimizing exactly as predicted. The surgical team works with choreographed efficiency, everyone understanding their roles in ensuring that this child's heart will support a completely normal life. "Perfect repair," Dr. Richardson observes as they complete the final sutures. "This child is going to run marathons if she wants to." But as Shanice removes her surgical gloves and prepares to update the Lee family about the successful procedure, she finds Junho waiting in the corridor with an expression that suggests he's been rehearsing something important. "The surgery was perfect," she announces immediately, wanting to ease any parental anxiety before addressing whatever else is on his mind. Minjun's heart function is now completely normal. She'll need routine follow-up appointments, but her cardiac crisis is officially resolved. Relief transforms Junho's expression. the weight of months of worry finally lifting as he absorbs the news that his daughter is truly healthy. But then his expression shifts into something more complex. Hope mixed with nervousness, love combined with uncertainty. "Shanice," he says quietly, "there's something I need to ask you." Before she can respond, he reaches into his jacket pocket and withdraws a small velvet box that makes her heart stop completely. The corridor around them seems to fade away, leaving just the two of them standing in this space between Minjun's successful surgery and whatever comes next in their relationship. 3 months ago, I brought my dying daughter to this hospital, convinced I was about to lose the only person left in the world who mattered to me. His voice is steady but emotional, carrying the weight of everything they've experienced together. "You saved her life, but more than that, you saved our family. You taught me that love isn't something to be rationed or protected from risk. It's something to be shared and celebrated and built into something bigger than individual survival." He opens the box to reveal an engagement ring that somehow manages to honor both Korean tradition and American expectations. Elegant, sophisticated, and clearly chosen by someone who understands that marriage is about bridging cultures rather than choosing between them. "Dr. Shanice Howard," he continues, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Will you marry me? Will you be Minjun's mother and my partner, and the person who helps our family continue healing together?" The proposal comes in a hospital corridor after surgery, surrounded by the sounds and smells of medical care rather than romantic ambiance. But it feels absolutely perfect, because this is where their love story began, where they learned to trust each other, where they discovered that the best families are sometimes built from crisis and caring, rather than traditional expectations. "Yes," Shanice whispers, and the word feels like flying and coming home simultaneously. "Yes, I'll marry you." As he slides the ring onto her finger, she realizes that So Young's letter is still in her jacket pocket, the truth about his wife's death still waiting to be revealed. But in this moment of joy and commitment, she decides that some truths can wait until love has had time to establish its own foundations. Because sometimes the most important healing happens not in operating rooms or with medications, but in the quiet moments when people choose to build futures together, despite all the reasons that love feels too risky to pursue. The recovery room fills with soft afternoon light, as Minjun wakes from anesthesia to find herself surrounded by the 3 adults who have become her definition of family. Junho beside her bed, Youngsuk arranging flowers with military precision, and Shanice checking post-operative vitals with the gentle efficiency that has characterized all their interactions. "My heart feels happy," Minjun announces in sleepy English, her small hand moving to touch the surgical dressing over her chest. "It sounds like music now." Shanice listens to Minjun's heartbeat through her stethoscope, hearing the strong, steady rhythm that confirms the surgery's complete success. But more than medical validation, she hears the sound of a family that has learned to heal together. 3 generations and 2 cultures united by love that has proven stronger than professional complications or cultural expectations. "The most beautiful music I've ever heard," she agrees, and means it completely. Youngsuk approaches the bedside with an expression that combines grandmother's relief with something more complex. Acceptance, perhaps, or recognition that families sometimes grow in unexpected directions. "Minjuna," she says gently in Korean, then switches to English for everyone's benefit. "Your heart doctor is going to be part of our family now. How do you feel about that?" Minjun considers the question with the seriousness she applies to all important matters. "I feel like we've been family already, and now it's just official." She looks directly at Shanice. "Will you still be my heart doctor after you're my Umma?" The Korean word for mother hangs in the air like a gift. Shanice feels tears threatening as she realizes that Minjun has already made the emotional transition from seeing her as a medical provider to seeing her as a permanent part of their family structure. "I'll always be your heart doctor," Shanice promises. "And now I get to be your Umma too." The integration of Korean family terms with American relationship expectations feels natural rather than forced, a sign that their cross-cultural family might actually work, despite all the complications they've navigated. But first, Young-suk says with the diplomatic authority she brings to all delicate situations, we need to have an honest conversation about family history and medical decisions, and the information that adults sometimes carry to protect the people they love. She looks directly at Shanice, who realizes that Young-suk knows about So-young's letter, and understands that marriage will require complete honesty about past traumas and their ongoing effects on family dynamics. "What kind of conversation?" Junho asks, his protective instincts immediately alert to any potential threat to his daughter's recovery or their family's stability. Shanice makes a decision that feels both terrifying and necessary. She reaches into her jacket pocket and withdraws the letter that has been weighing on her conscience since yesterday, the envelope that contains information that could change everything. "Junho," she says carefully, "your mother gave me something that belongs to you, something that might change how you understand So-young's illness and death." She hands him the letter, watching his expression transform as he recognizes his wife's handwriting. The room falls silent, except for the quiet beeping of Min-jun's monitors, and the distant sounds of hospital life continuing around this moment of potential revelation. "She wrote this before she died," Young-suk explains gently. "She wanted you to have it when you were ready to love again, when you had something hopeful to balance the pain of understanding what really happened during her illness." Junho stares at the envelope as if it might contain explosives rather than explanations. What really happened? She didn't have appendicitis. She had ovarian cancer that was misdiagnosed. The surgery you arranged probably extended her life by discovering the cancer earlier than it would have been found otherwise. Young-suk's voice carries years of protected sorrow. She asked the medical team not to tell you immediately because she wanted time to process the diagnosis herself before sharing the burden with you. The revelation hits him like a physical blow. 3 years of guilt, 3 years of self-recrimination, 3 years of believing his decisions contributed to his wife's death, all based on incomplete information about her medical condition and her own choices about managing terminal illness. "She died protecting me from the knowledge that she was dying," he says quietly, the words carrying the weight of understanding that reframes everything he's believed about their marriage and his responsibility for her death. "She died loving you enough to try to spare you from her fear," Shanice corrects gently. "Just like you've been living with guilt to spare yourself from the pain of accepting that her death wasn't preventable." Min-jun, who has been listening to this adult conversation with the absorbed attention of children who understand emotional weight even when they don't grasp all the details, reaches toward her father with small arms that demand comfort. "Appa," she says in Korean, then switches to English. "Mommy isn't gone if we remember her with happy feelings instead of sad feelings." The wisdom of children cuts through adult complexity with devastating accuracy. Min-jun has identified the core truth that all their healing needs to address. That honoring the dead means choosing life and hope rather than guilt and regret. Junho opens the letter with trembling hands, his eyes moving across his wife's familiar handwriting, as he reads words she wrote, knowing she would never see his reaction. The room waits in respectful silence as he processes information that will either free him from years of self-blame or create new forms of emotional complexity. "She says she hopes I'll find love again," he says finally, his voice thick with tears and wonder. "She says she hopes I'll choose someone who will love Min-jun like her own daughter. Someone who understands that medicine is both science and heart." He looks up at Shanice. "She says she hopes I'll choose someone who proves that healing is possible even when loss feels permanent." The letter's contents feel like benediction from beyond death. So-young's blessing for the relationship that has grown from her daughter's medical crisis. But more than that, They feel like permission for everyone in the room to stop carrying guilt and start building hope. She knew, Young-suk says softly. Somehow she knew that Min-jun's heart condition would bring you exactly the person you needed to learn how to live fully again. As the afternoon sun fills the recovery room with golden light, 4 people sit together in the complicated peace that comes after truth-telling and forgiveness. Min-jun's heart beats steadily, her medical crisis finally resolved. Junho's guilt begins its slow transformation into gratitude for the time he had with So Young and the love he's found with Shanice. Young-suk releases the burden of carrying family secrets, understanding that protection sometimes requires disclosure rather than silence. And Shanice realizes that the family she's choosing to join isn't just about loving Junho and Min-jun. It's about honoring So Young's memory by proving that love can heal across time and culture and loss. 6 months after Min-jun's final surgery, the Lee family's new apartment in Manhattan's Upper West Side represents everything they've learned about building home across cultures and expectations. Korean art hangs beside American family photos. Traditional dishes share kitchen space with Southern comfort food recipes. And Min-jun switches between languages with the fluid ease of children who understand that love translates perfectly, regardless of vocabulary. Shanice wakes to the sound of Min-jun's laughter echoing from the kitchen, where Junho is attempting to make pancakes under the supervision of his nearly 2-year-old daughter. The domestic scene feels both miraculous and normal, the kind of everyday family moment that would have seemed impossible during those first desperate nights in the hospital. "Dr. Uma," Min-jun calls as Shanice appears in the kitchen doorway. "Appa is making breakfast badly." "Hey," Junho protests in English, then switches to Korean to continue the playful argument with his daughter. "My pancakes are artistic, not bad." Shanice moves to inspect the breakfast situation, finding pancakes that are indeed more artistic than edible, but represent genuine effort at domestic competence. She kisses Junho good morning, marveling at how natural these small intimacies have become, despite all the professional and cultural complications that brought them together. "How's our heart patient this morning?" she asks Min-jun, automatically checking the child's color and breathing with the practiced eye of someone who's learned that medical vigilance and maternal love aren't contradictory impulses. "Perfect heart, hungry stomach," Min-jun replies, her English vocabulary expanding daily under Shanice's patient encouragement. The wedding is scheduled for next month, a ceremony that will blend Korean traditions with American customs, taking place in the hospital garden where they fell in love rather than in a church or temple that represents one culture over another. Young-suk has taken charge of planning with the efficiency she brings to all complex international negotiations, somehow managing to honor both families' expectations while creating something entirely new. "The final guest list arrived yesterday," Junho reports, pouring coffee that actually smells competent despite the pancake disaster. 200 people from Seoul, 50 from your family in Atlanta, and half the hospital staff who've been following our love story since the beginning. Dr. Martinez RSVP'd. "Yes," Shanice adds with amusement. Apparently, she's bringing a date and wants to prove that she supports interdisciplinary medical romance. "Elena's found someone?" Dr. Williams from cardiothoracic surgery. Turns out her professional jealousy was partly personal frustration that she couldn't find what we found. The conversation is interrupted by Young-suk's arrival, carrying flowers from the farmer's market, and the particular energy of someone managing multiple complex family situations with diplomatic precision. She's learned to navigate American informality without losing Korean courtesy, creating a grandmotherly presence that bridges cultures rather than choosing between them. "Min-jun-ah," she says, settling into her chair with the regal bearing that characterizes all her movements. "Your heart doctor mother and I need to discuss wedding flowers and cultural traditions, and whether American customs can be adapted to honor Korean family expectations." "Halmoni," Min-jun responds seriously. Can we have both kinds of flowers? Korean flowers for family and American flowers for Dr. Umma? The diplomatic solution comes naturally to a child who's grown up understanding that families can include multiple cultures without losing their essential unity. Young-suk's expression softens as she realizes that Min-jun is already learning to navigate cultural complexity with grace and inclusivity. Both kinds of flowers, she agrees. For both kinds of family. As they discuss wedding plans over breakfast, that's more about togetherness than culinary excellence. Shanice reflects on the improbable path that brought them to this moment. A medical emergency that could have ended in tragedy became the foundation for love that proved stronger than professional boundaries, cultural expectations, and personal fears. Her phone rings with the familiar tone that indicates hospital business. Probably a consultation about a complex pediatric case, or follow-up on one of her current patients, or administrative details related to the research paper she's writing about innovative approaches to pediatric cardiac surgery. Dr. Howard, she answers professionally, though her personal life and medical career have become integrated in ways that make the formal tone feel slightly artificial. Shanice, it's Dr. Richardson. We have a situation in the emergency room that requires your specific expertise. 6-year-old with complex congenital heart defect, parents who speak limited English, and a medical history that suggests this case might be similar to the innovative surgical approach you used with Min-jun. The professional call pulls her immediately back into the world of medical crisis and life-or-death decisions. But as she prepares to leave for the hospital, she realizes that her personal experiences have enhanced rather than compromised her ability to help other families navigate medical emergencies with cultural complications. I'll be there in 20 minutes, she promises. Another family needs their heart doctor, Min-jun observes with the intuitive understanding that children often have about adult priorities and responsibilities. Yes, sweetheart. Another family needs help. Will you save them? Like you saved us? The question carries layers of meaning that extend far beyond medical intervention. Min-jun is asking whether the healing that transformed their lives can be replicated for other families facing similar crises, whether love and medical expertise can combine to create miracles for other children who need both heart repair and family restoration. I'm going to try, Shanice promises, and she means it with every fiber of her professional and personal being. As she kisses Min-jun and Junho goodbye, heading off to another medical emergency that might become another love story, Shanice carries with her the knowledge that some families are born from biology and tradition, while others are built from crisis and caring, and the courage to love across every difference that seems like it should matter, but ultimately doesn't. Because the heart, medical and metaphorical, recognizes love in any language, responds to caring touch regardless of cultural background, and heals best when it's surrounded by people who understand that family is defined by commitment rather than convention. The Presbyterian Hospital conference room overlooks Manhattan's bustling streets, but today, it serves as the bridge between two worlds as Shanice presents her research on innovative pediatric cardiac surgery to a panel that includes colleagues from Seoul National University Hospital. The presentation represents more than medical scholarship. It's validation of the surgical techniques that saved Min-jun's life, and proof that emotional investment in patients can enhance, rather than compromise clinical outcomes. The experimental valve repair technique showed superior long-term outcomes compared to traditional approaches in all measured categories, she explains to the international audience, her slides displaying Min-jun's case study alongside data from 12 other complex pediatric cardiac repairs she's performed over the past year. Dr. Kim Sang-woo, who attended Young-suk's dinner party months ago, raises his hand with a question that carries obvious professional respect. Dr. Howard, your success rate with complex cases suggests that your approach to patient care includes factors beyond technical surgical skill. Can you elaborate on the role of emotional connection in medical outcomes? The question invites her to articulate something she's been learning through experience rather than textbook study. The way that genuine caring about patients and families creates deeper understanding of individual medical needs, leading to treatment decisions that are both scientifically sound and personally appropriate. Emotional connection enhances clinical observation. She responds thoughtfully. When you truly know your patient, their individual response patterns, their family dynamics, their cultural context, you notice subtle changes that might be missed in more detached clinical relationships. This deeper knowledge translates into more precisely targeted medical interventions. From the back of the room, she spots Junho and Minjun watching through the glass partition. Minjun wears her favorite dress and carries her pink teddy bear, while Junho holds her with the casual ease of someone whose life has stabilized around love and family routines. The sight of them fills Shanice with the particular kind of joy that comes from knowing your professional work and personal happiness have become mutually supporting rather than competitive forces. Dr. Martinez, who has become a genuine colleague and friend since her initial professional jealousy transformed into respect, asks the next question. Dr. Howard, have you considered establishing a program that specifically addresses the needs of international families dealing with complex pediatric medical situations? The suggestion represents something Shanice has been thinking about for months. The possibility of creating formal protocols for treating patients whose medical needs intersect with cultural navigation, language barriers, and the particular stresses of seeking medical care far from familiar support systems. Actually, I've been developing a proposal for exactly that kind of program. International families often face additional challenges beyond the medical crisis itself. Cultural differences in medical decision-making, language barriers that affect informed consent, isolation from extended family support networks. Addressing these factors can significantly improve both medical outcomes and family adjustment. As the presentation concludes and colleagues from both countries offer congratulations and professional networking opportunities, Shanice realizes that her personal experience with the Lee family has positioned her to become a bridge between Korean and American approaches to pediatric medicine. The love story that began in an emergency room might evolve into a career that helps other families navigate similar situations. Impressive work, Dr. Richardson comments as the crowd disperses. And I have news that might interest you. Seoul National University Hospital has invited you to establish a satellite pediatric cardiac program that would allow you to treat Korean patients who need specialized care while maintaining your practice here in New York. The opportunity feels like the universe offering validation of everything they've built together. Professional recognition, cultural integration, and the chance to help other families bridge the gap between crisis and healing. It would mean travel back and forth between Seoul and New York, Richardson continues, but it would also mean pioneering a new model of international pediatric cardiac care. Interested? Before Shanice can respond, Minjun appears at her side with the determined purposefulness of a child who has something important to communicate. Dr. Oma, are we going to Korea to help other children? The question comes with the casual assumption that family decisions are made together, that Minjun's opinion matters in choices about their collective future. It also reveals that she's been listening to adult conversations about professional opportunities with the absorbed attention of children who understand when important changes are being discussed. Would you like to visit Korea? Shanice asks. I would like to visit everywhere with you and Appa. Minjun replies with the simple logic that makes complex international career decisions feel manageable when they're grounded in family commitment. Junho joins them, his expression carrying the particular satisfaction of someone who's watched his future wife receive professional recognition for work that directly benefited their family. So, you're becoming an international expert on pediatric cardiac surgery and cross-cultural medical care? Apparently. Would that be complicated for your business operations? My business operations would benefit from having legitimate reasons to travel between Seoul and New York regularly. Lee Industries could use someone with expertise in managing international family situations. His smile carries layers of meaning that extend far beyond professional convenience. Plus, Minjun should grow up understanding both her Korean heritage and her American opportunities. As they walk through the hospital corridors where their love story began, Shanice marvels at how naturally their individual career goals have aligned with their family needs. The international program would allow her to expand her medical impact while honoring the cultural complexities that first brought them together. Junho's business expansion would benefit from his bicultural family's expertise in navigating Korean-American professional relationships. And Minjun would grow up truly bilingual and bicultural, comfortable in both the countries that shape her identity. "There's something else," Junho says as they reach the hospital garden where he proposed. "My mother wants to establish a foundation that provides medical care for Korean children who need specialized treatment in American hospitals. She's calling it the So Young Foundation, in memory of my wife. The proposal feels like the completion of a circle, honoring the past while building for the future, using their personal experience of medical crisis and cross-cultural love to create resources for other families facing similar challenges. She wants you to be the medical director," he continues. "Full funding for research, patient care, and family support services. Based here in New York, but with connections to hospitals throughout Korea." Shanice feels the magnitude of what's being offered. Not just professional advancement, but the chance to transform their personal story into systematic help for other families. The foundation would represent everything they've learned about healing across cultures, about the integration of excellent medical care with genuine emotional support. "So we're not just building a family," she realizes aloud. "We're building a bridge between worlds, creating possibilities for other people to find the same kind of healing we've found together." The hospital garden on a June morning looks like something from a fairy tale, transformed by Young Suk's meticulous planning into a venue that honors both Korean traditions and American wedding customs. Traditional Korean decorations blend seamlessly with American floral arrangements, creating a space that celebrates the multicultural family being formally united today. Minjun stands at the altar wearing a miniature hanbok in pink and gold, her role as flower girl elevated to something more significant. She's the bridge between her father's past and future, the child whose medical crisis brought together the adults who are about to promise their lives to each other. "Dr. Uma looks like a princess," she whispers to Junho in Korean, then repeats in English for the benefit of Shanice's family members who've traveled from Atlanta for the wedding. Shanice does look like a princess, wearing a wedding dress that incorporates both American elegance and subtle Korean design elements. But more than her appearance, she radiates the particular joy of someone who's found exactly where she belongs in the world, professionally, personally, culturally, and emotionally. The ceremony itself reflects everything they've learned about building bridges rather than choosing sides. Korean elements, the payback ceremony where they honor elders, the sharing of dates and chestnuts for fertility and longevity, are integrated with American traditions like personal vows and ring exchanges that speak to individual rather than collective commitment. "Shanice," Junho says, as they exchange rings in front of 200 guests who represent both their professional worlds and their extended families. 3 years ago, I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. Today I understand that life offers second chances to people who are brave enough to risk loving again. You saved Minjun's heart. But more than that, you saved our family's ability to believe in happiness. His vows carry the weight of everything they've navigated together: medical crisis, cultural expectations, professional complications, and the gradual building of trust between two people who learned that love is worth fighting for. "Junho," Shanice responds, "you taught me that being a good doctor means more than technical competence. It means understanding that healing happens in families, not just in individual patients. You and Minjun have made me a better physician, a better woman, and a better person. I promise to love you both for all the days of my life." But it's Minjun who steals the show during the ring exchange, producing from her small handbag a third ring, a child-sized band that she's apparently purchased with careful planning and Young-suk's assistance. For Oma, she announces in Korean, then switches to English. Because families have matching rings, and I'm part of this family too. The gesture brings tears to every eye in the garden, as this small child demonstrates her understanding that families are created through choice and commitment, rather than just biological connection. As Shanice kneels to accept Minjun's gift, slipping the tiny ring onto her pinky finger, everyone present understands they're witnessing something more than a wedding. They're seeing the formal creation of a family that has already proven its love through crisis and healing. The reception continues the multicultural celebration with Korean traditional music alongside American wedding songs, bulgogi served beside Southern barbecue, and toasts given in both languages by family members who've learned that love translates perfectly regardless of vocabulary. Dr. Richardson raises his glass with the particular authority of someone who's witnessed this love story from its medical beginning. To Shanice and Junho, proof that the best families are sometimes built in hospital corridors by people brave enough to love across every difference that should matter, but doesn't. Young-suk follows with her own toast, delivered first in Korean and then translated into English. To the daughter-in-law who honored my son by seeing past his grief to his capacity for love, and to the granddaughter-in-law who proved that healing hearts requires both medical skill and emotional courage. But it's Minjun's toast that brings the deepest emotion, delivered in the confident English of a child who's learned that important things deserve careful expression. To my appa and my uma, thank you for showing me that families can grow bigger and love can grow stronger, even when hearts are broken. My heart is fixed now, and our family is perfect. As the evening progresses with dancing and celebration, and the particular joy that comes from witnessing love triumph over circumstances, Shanice reflects on the journey that brought them to this moment. A medical emergency that could have ended in tragedy became the foundation for professional success, cross-cultural understanding, and personal happiness beyond anything she'd previously imagined possible. The So Young Foundation is launching next month with Shanice as medical director, Junho as executive director, and Young-suk as board chair. Their first project will be establishing protocols for treating Korean children who need specialized cardiac care in American hospitals, ensuring that other families won't face the isolation and cultural navigation challenges that initially complicated Minjun's treatment. "What are you thinking about?" Junho asks, as they share their first dance as a married couple. Minjun dancing between them with the unself-conscious joy of children who know they're completely loved. "I'm thinking that Minjun was right. Our family is perfect. Not because we don't have challenges or complications, but because we've learned to handle challenges and complications together." And professionally? Any regrets about choosing the complicated path instead of the safe one? Shanice looks around the garden at colleagues from 2 countries, family members from different cultures, and the small child who dances between them with a perfectly healthy heart that beats strong and steady with love and life and possibilities. "No regrets," she says firmly. Just gratitude that sometimes the most improbable love stories turn out to be the most beautiful ones. As the celebration continues under June stars, 3 hearts beat in harmony. The child whose medical crisis became the catalyst for healing. The father who learned that love isn't a betrayal of grief, but a transformation of it. And the doctor who discovered that the best medicine combines technical skill with emotional courage and cultural understanding. Their love story began in a hospital emergency room with a desperate father, a dying child, and a young doctor who refused to choose between professional boundaries and human connection. It continues in a foundation that will help other families bridge the gap between medical crisis and multicultural healing, proving that some love stories become bigger than the individuals who create them. And Minjun, who sleeps peacefully in her new home with a perfectly healthy heart and 2 parents who love her beyond measure, represents the beautiful truth that healing is possible across every difference that seems like it should matter but ultimately doesn't. Because love, in the end, is the only medicine that really heals everything. This story of hope, healing, and cross-cultural love proves that sometimes the most beautiful families are born in the most unexpected places, where medicine meets compassion, where professional boundaries become bridges to deeper connection, and where love learns to speak in multiple languages to create something entirely new and perfectly whole.